basic coach training. For those of you who didn't get any promo on me and I never asked Kay what she actually said out, my name is Deb Winters. I am what they call a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, as Kay is also. And I have my own coaching business, which is debwinterscoaching.com. You can check both of those things out. I am an ordained clergy. I've been ordained for 32 plus years, 24 as a settled pastor, unusual for Methodists, but all at one church. So that's the norm for kind of the Reform side of the UCC. And I've been a traditional transitional pastor specialist for the past 8+ years and counting. So the other thing is, for those of you who went to seminary, I am the dreaded Old Testament professor at Palmer Theological Seminary, Eastern University. So that's my other gig that I do. So what we're here to talk about is coaching. And I'm on the staff of Coaching for Clergy, as Kay used to be, and that the vision is for every pastor, ministry staff, and church leader to be a coach, to learn the art of coaching and the skill of coaching. For me, I was in 2008 when my assistant conference minister, probably equivalent to your assistant bishop if you still use those titles, sent me because she heard there was this coaching thing and said, go find out what this is all about. So I went to a guy by the name of Val Hastings, who you may or may not have heard of. He's big in the coaching world. He's the one who owns Coaching for Clergy, Coaching for Today's Leaders. I know down Penn Southeast area, he's big in the coaching with the Methodist and does a lot of the coaching down there. I went to see what he was doing, and within the first 10 minutes, I knew not only did I want to learn this for myself, but I wanted to make sure that my seminarian students learned this skill. And the thing that just overwhelmed me with this was that within coaching, I was able to figure out how to get to the point of what the person wanted much quicker. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience as a pastor, but for me, somebody would say at the end of church, Pastor, can I talk to you? Okay, sure, let's set up a time. So they'd come in and they'd start talking to me and they'd be there about half an hour and I'd be trying to figure out what they wanted to talk about. And then I go, so this is what you want to talk about? Like, oh no, that's not what I wanted to talk about at all. And at that point, like half an hour had gone by and we hadn't even gotten to the point yet. So coaching is one of those skills that allowed me to get to the point very quickly. And it's unusual for a conversation to have to go more than 20 minutes. Person comes in, I get to the point, we figure out what needs to happen next, and the person is out my door. So, and as a pastor, for me, that gift of time is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So we're going to talk about coaching. We're going to learn the basic skills or the core coaching skills, and you're only actually going to learn 4 of them today, enough to give you a taste of coaching and know the basics on how to do it and to make you dangerous. All right, so we'll talk about this at the end because you can actually go on for certification with coaching and how far Kay wants you to go. She'll be ending this and talk to you about what your next steps are. We're going to talk about the theory and the practice. You're going to experience a live coaching in about 5 minutes. And then be aware that today you are going to coach someone and someone is going to coach you. So you might want to pay attention through to lunch because after lunch you're going to be coaching. All right, so we're going to open this up for questions, and when we do the questions, I've been told because we're taping, either I have to repeat the question or we'll have to bring the mic over to you. So it'll slow things up just a little bit, but we'll keep it moving, and it should be fun. And then immediate applications is Kay will come up and do your next steps and how you're going to begin to apply this and what your other opportunities are for further education depending upon how far you want to go in coaching. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is coaching, but in order to do that, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to coach someone. So you're going to see for the next 20 minutes what a coaching session normally looks like. So in order to do this, I actually need somebody who needs to be coached. And that's going to be one of you. So it's got to be something that you're struggling with or dealing with or want to kind of find a solution with right now, all right? Nathan is a brave man. So Nathan, I just want to make sure that this is confidential between you and me and about 60 other people on this tape for all posterity. So as long as you're okay with that?
That's all right.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Nathan to come up and to have a seat here. I'd say grab the mic there, Nathan, because you're going to have to use that. Have a seat and let me talk to them first. So when I'm coaching Nathan, I'm going to ask you to what we call go on mute. So my attention is going to be fully on Nathan and dealing with whatever he wants to be coached on today. I want you to listen to the questions that I ask and what sort of happens. When we're done, I'm going to see what questions you have. We're going to talk to Nate, see how it went for him. And I'm going to ask you as much as possible. I don't know what Nathan is going to say or offer today. That's, this is all in God's hands. That you try not to react. So whether it's like, or ha, 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 or, oh, so try to keep reactions at a minimum because that actually affects the coaching and it will affect how Nathan is sharing. So I'm going to ask you to really go on mute, all right? And we're going to go on to the coaching. And the last thing I need is a timekeeper. Okay, do you want to? So 20 minutes, give me 5-minute warning, like 15 minutes, give me, all right? So, all right. Then I'm heading into my coaching session, all right? So, do you prefer Nathan or Nate?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Nope.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much. You're a brave man for being willing to do this.
I've been through a lot worse.
Okay, good. Have you ever been in a coaching session before?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, so you have a basic understanding of how it goes.
A little bit.
Okay, so you're getting free coaching today. Way to go. So tell me, what is it that you want to be coached about today?
How do you gently tell your congregation that their churches are being closed because they are not following the book of discipline?
All right, so the situation is more than one church, or is this one church that you're dealing with?
3 churches.
You're dealing in 3 churches. And they're not following the book of discipline?
No, they sold a piece of property without telling the district superintendent.
Okay.
And that goes against what we believe in. So.
Okay. And have you had conversations with these churches?
I have. And they have basically told me the same thing, and that's the reason why they're getting closed is that we're not going to give the money to the district. They don't need it. We're going to use it for our own good, and that was basically it. So, but it happened before I'd come on board with them. But digging through some of their records and stuff, we found out what they were doing. So.
Okay. So all of this happened before you?
Yeah, before I came on board with them. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your role with these 3 churches now?
I'm their pastor right now.
Okay. And so when we're done our 20-minute coaching session, what is it that you want to be able to walk away with?
I want to be able to talk to them and explain, why they're going to be closed.
Okay. So as you envision this, the best case scenario, you've done the conversation, what is it that you want to have happen and be with them?
That I wasn't the one doing it.
Okay.
Because of their own actions is what is going to cause them to close.
Okay. So at the end of the discussion with them, that's the reaction you want. They're realizing it's not you, it's some of the actions that they have done.
Yep.
Okay. So as you envision this conversation with them, how do you envision beginning it?
That's a good question because I don't know. Because I think the last person who tried to have a discussion with them about stuff was threatened. And they kind of backed down from them, but I'm not one to back down, so I just don't know how it's going to go. That's why they're sending a couple people up to tell them, not just me.
Okay. So are you meeting with all 3 or each individually?
All 3. We're going to meet with the PPRC first.
Okay.
And then they'll go from there.
Okay. And so do you mind doing a little bit of role playing?
Sure.
Let's say you're at that meeting. I'm there. What is it how are you going to begin? How are you going to start the conversation?
I'm going to basically say, because of the financial practices that you guys have been doing before I got here, the district has chosen to close all 3 churches because you are not following the guidelines in the Book of Discipline, and you are basically being a rogue entity in the United Methodist Church. So, if you were to follow the Book of Discipline, they might do something else. But so far, you've proven that you're not going to.
Okay. So these churches actually have some options that if they do follow, there's a chance there's still communication possible?
Yes and no.
Okay.
One of them does, but the other 2 do not. The largest of the three churches does have some options, but the other two do not.
Okay. So I'm curious, has anyone asked them why they chose to do what they did?
I have, because they do not like the district. They do not want to be involved with them. They don't like their rules. They don't believe they should know the money that they make. And that's pretty much the answer I get from everybody up there.
Mm-hmm. So do these churches want to be United Methodist?
I think they want to be, but they don't want to follow the rules. So it's kind of a catch-20, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So are you trying to hold on to the one and let go of the other two, or?
I believe the largest of the one is going to be folded into another one, and they're going to make a new congregation, I believe.
So there's possibly already plans in place.
There's plans in place that I'm not fully aware of completely.
So when you think about this meeting, what do you really see your role as?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
Because I'm not really the one bringing them the news. So it will be the assisting elders who will be doing it.
Okay. So what do you want your role to be?
Not get threatened. Would be a nice role. You
Okay.
know, I'm not real keen on having weapons pulled on me because I think they had done that in the past to someone. So just as long as I don't have to get into any trouble like that, I'm okay. I've been in enough trouble with those kind of things that I stay away from it.
Okay. So what do you think they might be feeling right now?
There's going to be a lot of resentment. There's going to be a lot of hate and a lot of distrust.
Okay.
I know that when that does come out, that they are not going to like me very much because I was the one who told them they had to report their financial numbers to the district. And so they are going to blame me for it.
Okay.
And I'm well aware that that's going to happen.
So if they do blame you for it, how will you handle that?
Well, I will simply state to them that the district requires certain things of you if you are going to be a United Methodist Church, and we have to report to them. They are the governing body over us, and so if we don't report to them, we are in fact going against their rules and regulations.
Okay. So at that point, would you give them a choice as to whether to be able to do that or not?
That choice really isn't up to me, so that's up to the district superintendent and the elders.
Okay. So what is up to you?
I think just being their pastor and maybe being with them until they tell me I'm no longer there.
Okay.
So I'm just going to have to deal with a lot of hostility.
All right, so best case scenario, how could you best pastor them?
I'm going to try to do it with compassion and a little bit of love because I know that those churches have been there for quite a while. And I had found out that they had probably been forgot about. They were part of the New York conference at one point, and no one really paid any attention to them. So they just did their own thing. So I believe that they were so used to doing their own thing that's why they distrust the conferences so much. So I'm just going to teach them God's word, and I would love to give them a sermon about not lying and telling the truth because that's what they're doing. So.
So I'm curious, when you say about compassion, how can you best show that to them?
Just not get angry with them, just be myself. I got pretty big shoulders, I could take a lot, but there is a point that I have to make sure that I don't get to, because I do get angry quite quickly. That's one of my downfalls. But I know that I can work with them and just try to resolve their issues, I guess.
Okay. So how can, in the midst of this meeting, if somebody pushes one of your buttons, how is it that you can best make sure you don't?
I just have to step back a little bit and realize that it's going to be emotional because it's their churches.
Okay.
And it's an obvious reaction. I mean, you can either fight or you can run. And so most of those people up there they're going to fight. So that's just their reaction that they're normally used to.
Okay. And let me just check in. Are we on the right track here with what you wanted to?
Yep.
Okay. So in the midst of this meeting, if you're able to keep your anger under control, how can you help them be heard?
Well, I can make sure that their concerns are taken to the district, but of course the elders are going to be there, so they'll take their concerns as well. But also, just to let them know that it was because of what they were doing. It wasn't, it wasn't anything that I did. It was their own practices that has brought all this about. So, and I believe this isn't the first time that they've gotten in trouble for something like this. So that's kind of the backstory, I guess.
Okay. And if they're willing to consider their practices and look at them differently, is there a way to help them to do that?
Possibly. I mean, they could look forward to moving ahead if they do get combined or whatever's going to happen. That gives them the opportunity to not have to worry so much about just trying to keep the doors open for 8 people. Or for it's 8 people and then like 20 some and then 35 people. So it would give them an opportunity to grow as Christians because they would be able to do more as one congregation instead of 3 separate individuals.
Right.
Because right now they can't, the 2 smaller churches can't do it on their own. They're really struggling.
Yeah. And has this been shared with them in a way that they can hear that?
I do not know.
Okay.
Because they've been without a pastor for, I think, about a year.
Okay.
So.
And you are pastoring there now?
I am.
And at what point is this meeting taking place?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. So Sunday's it?
Yep.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So between now and the meeting, is there any kind of preparation you can do with them? Any kind of breaking the ground a little bit?
I'm not 100% sure on that because I have a funeral I'm doing on Saturday as well, so I'm going to be pretty tied up with that.
With one of the churches?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working at least with one of the churches and being a pastor in this funeral setting with them?
Yep.
And then Sunday you're preaching at each?
Yep.
And your topic on Sunday?
It is actually going to be Jesus the Miracle Worker.
All right. So what kind of miracles are you going to talk to them about?
Well, I've talked about the healing and about making blind see and changing wine to water. But the miracle I could probably discuss would be, moving forward as a congregation, what you would see the future to be.
Yeah. What hope is there for each of these congregations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So talk to me now about the meeting. How are you going to come? How are you going to prepare yourself for the meeting?
I believe I'm just going to pray a lot.
Absolutely.
Because honestly, with this group, I don't know what they're going to do. It's kind of a loose cannon. So
Okay.
I had a little lady. She was probably in her 90s, and she stood up to me when I asked her for the amount of offering that we got the one Sunday. She said, "We pay our apportionments. We're not telling the district what we make." And that's the way it's been, and that's what we're going to do. And I said, well, that's not what we're going to do, because that's not what I'm doing, and that's not what the district wants. And she literally, she attacked me, and I'd never been, it's like my grandma attacking me. And so I never had that issue before. I'm going, well, okay. I said, you can be mad all you want, but, these numbers have to be turned in. I said, I'm held responsible for them, therefore you're held responsible for them. And if I'm not doing my job, you no longer have a pastor. So I did explain myself, but it was just kind of interesting because I didn't expect that.
Okay. So in the midst of the meeting, any particular role? Because you're not actually running it, correct?
I'm not actually giving the bad news.
Right.
So maybe I can just be a mediator and just try to keep everybody calmed down
Okay.
so they don't overreact or throw furniture.
And how can you make sure their voice is heard?
Well, we can just listen to their concerns and their wants and how they feel. But I think at this point it's a little late for that.
And how can you make sure they're hearing the district's voice?
Let them understand that, if they want to be part of the church, this is what they have to do. Otherwise, they're on their own. So, it's all going to be up to them.
So the choice is pretty much at this meeting.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, it will be resolved, whichever
Probably.
way it goes.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, it may be a couple months before they actually close them or whatever, but we'll see what happens.
So what happens, worst case scenario, all three decide they're leaving?
Well, then I guess I put myself out of a job. So, I mean, that's worst case scenario, but, you know, at the same point, then maybe that's what has to happen.
And what's best case scenario?
That they would work with the district and go along with the changes and grow their community of followers a little more than what they've been trying to do on their own.
Okay. And where do you see God in all of this?
I believe God is present there because he always says that the truth is going to be revealed one way or another, and unfortunately it's been revealed. So they have to be able to see that no matter what they try to cover up, that it's going to come to a head eventually, whether today or tomorrow. But
Right. So, and Wednesday sounds like that's the day
that's
it's going to
gonna
be
the day.
revealed.
Yep.
Okay. So talk me through now, what are your next steps in this?
My next steps is just to continue to minister their needs, let them know that, you know, even though they made mistakes, we all make mistakes, and that they can repent from their mistakes and move forward, or they can stay with their mistakes and not move ahead at all.
Okay. And
So
let
we
me,
just have to show forgiveness.
yeah, and let me just ask this, are there any mistakes the district has done that it needs to repent from?
I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe sometimes it could be a little bit pushy, you know, maybe just if we'd back off a little bit and just explain it to them. But a lot of it came to light real quick. It was like, you know, 1 or 2 weeks. And so, you know, I was getting a lot of questions about their parsonage and what was going on with it and where it was. And so I had to start asking questions to the congregation about it. And of course, got some very interesting answers, but ended up having to go to the courthouse and find the deed that they had actually sold the property off of the church. So, you know, I had to do some investigation work myself because they weren't willing to cooperate. So,
Okay. So in preparation for this, is there anything else that you need to do?
I just think I need to pray and make sure that I understand compassion and forgiveness before I go into it.
As best you can?
Yep.
Yeah, is there anybody who can help you with this?
My mentor has been a big help, and several other people I've reached out to. My old mentor,
Is here?
Pastor Jen, yeah,
Okay.
she helps out a lot, so
Okay. So is there anything else we need to cover around this?
I don't think. I think it's just a matter of seeing what happens now.
Okay. And do you feel pretty centered and ready to go for it?
I was ready to go for it before, but it's not something that a brand new pastor usually gets hit over the head with. So,
But when we started, it was you're being prepared for the meeting. Do you feel that you're prepared and whatever happens, you're...
I think so. I think I'll be all right.
All right. So can we bring this to a close then?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, hold on to that. We're going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So, all right. So that's a coaching session. So talk to me. First and foremost, do you have any questions of me or of Nathan before we talk about what coaching actually is?
Can I just bring up a point? Nathan started this appointment in January, and this was the first time he's ever served churches. So the fact that he, you know, is dealing with this, and I think he's doing a good job too, especially when this is the first time he's ever served churches.
Right.
You know?
So thank you for affirming Nathan and filling in a little bit of the history. Thank you. But in terms of the coaching, any questions?
Do you, so you just directly ask, like, why are you here?
That's exactly right. And that, as a pastor, that's exactly right. As a pastor, and maybe I didn't catch that somewhere in seminary. When someone comes into my office, I now say, "What is it that you want to talk about?" So I get right to the point right away. Or in a coaching session, what is it you want to be coached on?
Because I noticed like all the questions were very direct.
Yep.
He basically answered his own, almost like a therapy session. He answered his own questions. He just basically turned everything back and sort of programmed, why are you here, what do you want, like what's going on in your head.
Right.
And I noticed you didn't really talk as much as him.
And that is good coaching. If you're in a good coaching session, the coach is talking maybe 20%, and the 80% should be the coachee or the client, and them talking about what's going on and to get it out of them. all right? That's part of what coaching is all about. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are the people going to know beforehand what that upcoming meeting is about? And if they do, what happens if nobody shows up at the meeting?
They do not know about it as of yet. The one elder was supposed to be coming to discuss apportionments because they fully didn't understand what was meant by them, and neither do I because I'm not really aware of everything that goes on with them yet. And so with all this coming to light, it's going to be a little bit of a shock to them. It's the board meeting, so the only thing that really stops it from happening would be weather. So we'll just have to go from there.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the differences between coaching and counseling? Because they seem like they be very similar.
Yep, and that's where we're going. So since you raised the question, let's go there. What is the difference between coaching and counseling, or what we would call therapy?
Well, one of the things I noticed is you didn't ask any questions about how do you feel about this. It was all about what would you like to see happen, how are you going to make something happen. It was more action-oriented than it was
Outcome-based.
It is outcome-based, that is correct, more action-oriented. When you go to a counselor or a therapist, what is it you're expecting to work on? The issue, and often it's background stuff. It's what happened in the past, what is it that's going on, where coaching is definitely forward moving. You're looking to help the client to take that next little step, whatever that might be, to find out what his goal was, what does he really want this to look like in the end, and how do we go about preparing a plan, and an action plan in order to get him there. So it's very much forward moving, and assuming that what his dream is something that is where he needs to be heading, because it's coming from within him. When I think of it theologically, I think of it the kingdom of God is within us, that the answer is within us. And oftentimes we either don't trust ourselves or we don't even listen to ourselves as to what it is we're already knowing has to happen. And a coach is someone who comes around and just helps them to hear what is already there. Yes, sir.
How long will a coaching session typically last, and how frequently, obviously it depends on the situation, but like something like what he's going through, how frequently would you look to meet together to work through this?
So coaching is one of the 10, I think it's number 5, fastest growing industries in the United States today. And so now there are a myriad of ways of coaching. So you can get an email coach, where you send them an email with a quick question and they just email you back, or text or Instagram or whatever works. There is 20-minute sessions that some folks do. Most sessions are half hour to 45 minutes. More than an hour is very rare. The hour is about the tops I've ever heard someone do a coaching session. And it depends on what the coaching is as to how long you meet with someone. Sometimes it's a one session done. He might want to, the meeting is Wednesday, let's talk after the meeting, let's see what pieces we have to pick up, what's your next steps now that you know what decision each of the churches have made. So with this, it may be a little longer depending upon what his ultimate outcome is. If he's going to walk these 3 churches through either leaving or coming together or whatever, this might be a little longer than a one session. So it can be any one of those combinations. So the rule of coaching is, when you ask, what do you want to be coached on? Whatever that is what they're contracting with you to help them with. For him, it was just that meeting and how he was going to be at that meeting and the reaction, and he didn't want to get killed at the meeting. He was kicking. Stay focused on that. You stay focused on whatever. Now, as you coach, they may end up changing the focus, and then you need to come back and say, do you still want this outcome, or do you want to now switch to whatever? Because sometimes when you're coaching, the layers start coming out, and it's called what we call going deep with someone. There's other things that are affecting this. But yeah, whatever the coach wants, coachee, client wants, that is where the coach is, that's the contract, that you're going to help them with whatever that situation is. Yeah, I asked him what would happen if how would he control himself? So, and his answer was that he was going to try to be pastoral, be compassionate, and that's the thing he was going to pray about before the meeting. So, yeah, between now and Wednesday, I don't know that I would send him for anger control management. It might be helpful as we continue coaching.
I've been through that, so.
Okay, so he's already been through it. So hopefully he will be a wise pastor and put those techniques in place on Wednesday. And part of my questioning was to help him focus in on what they're feeling also, because often that will help our anger if we realize what they might be feeling and going through. Usually when you contract with someone, when someone hires a coach, it's because they are stuck. And they want to be able to do something or get somewhere, so when they come, they sort of have an end game in mind, what they'd like an outcome to be. So as you talk with a person, it's, there's occasionally a 1 session. It's rare that it's less than 3 sessions, depending. And after that, 6 months, a year, it also depends on if it's like he would be paying. For example, I coach 2 different people that the Methodist Church is paying me to coach them because of the situations they are in. And they're year contracts, but it's the Methodist, that the denomination that is paying me to do that. It's not them. So I sort of have a role from the Methodist Church and from them, an agreement as to where we're going to be a year from now. So all of those things play in. Halfway through, if you heard me ask, are we on the right track here? And he said yes. So from what I heard him say, my job was to get him so that he was feeling like he could go into this meeting and he would be ready for it. And that is solely what we agreed to. Now, as we went on, you're right, there's a number of issues that came up. The anger issue, how much the churches actually knew about this, they're rogue anyway, how much they really understand, the apportionment thing, the question, so there's lots of other issues that are layers here. And in that case, it would be either he and I agreeing that we would maybe need to meet again before Wednesday, or finding out what could be done before Wednesday. He's got a wonderful opportunity on Sunday. He's preaching at all these 3. Even the funeral is a way that they'll see him in a pastoral role as someone who's, someone they can trust. So there are other parts to this. For this instance, this is a 120-minute, to give you a taste of coaching and to get him at least as what he wanted to feel better about preparing for the meeting.
So do you communicate?
Yeah, it is. And it's not something we're going to get to today in today's coaching session, but there is at the end saying, what I hear, I'd like you to hear this. It's called what we call direct communication. This is what I've heard from you, would you consider, So that is part of coaching, but it's not something that I did today, nor is it something that we're going to cover today. I don't know how far Kay is going to go with the coaching sessions for you, but that is more as you get into the more advanced coaching. Absolutely. It's clearly up to you. When you're taking notes, you need to ask permission from the coachee. If it's all right, can I take notes? I usually am a note taker. In this instance, I did not. It's a one time. I'm not seeing him on a 3 months, 6 months kind of thing. So I trust the good Lord enough to keep my memory, that I knew where we needed to head for at least for today. Yeah. But yeah, many people do take notes. Yeah. And there's a whole little science on note taking because there's a couple different ways to do it. So that's another class. Yeah. That is correct. This is somebody comes to your office, Pastor, I need to talk to you. Bam. You can at the end of that say if this is something we need to do more with. And that's where you have to be a little careful with if you're crossing into therapy or not with your insurance company, if you're doing a coaching session, which is something we can cover later, or Kay can, because depending upon your church insurance. In insurance company, I only know this because working at the seminary, if you're counseling someone, unless you have a counseling degree and you see them for more than 6 sessions, at least down in Philadelphia area, they will not cover you. So, if it's a pastoral spiritual thing, that's different. With coaching, as long as you're coaching them, it depends on your board and how they allow you to do that as part of your ministry. So, yeah, but you can, with people in your congregation, set up an ongoing coaching with the permission of your boards. Yeah, and your insurance company better know it too. Yeah, only because of today's climate. I think that partly depends on you and your relationship with whoever the parishioner is, but when I first started, I was a senior pastor, I was full-time in the ministry, and I let my congregation know I was being trained in coaching and that I would be doing coaching. I am not a counselor, and I'm very aware of that. Counseling is not I'm not going back in time and figuring out, what's the issue, what's your next step. Although I'm also aware when I'm meeting with someone, when I'm hearing what they're talking about, and issues with their father keep coming up, and the problem they're having with their third husband is because of the father, I know that is not a coaching issue. they need to get into therapy. And then I had a whole support group of therapists that I would say, you know, from what I'm hearing, I'm really going to suggest you need to see a therapist. Let's bring this coaching to a close. We can pick it up again after you meet with a therapist. And if you don't have a therapist or your company doesn't pay for a certain one, here's a list of, you know, surrounding that our church helps, you know, bring the cost down, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, there is a difference between counseling and coaching, yeah. And most people are surprised to hear that, but as a coach, you don't need to know anything about what the client or the coachee is bringing. You are simply coaching them and finding out what is within them and what are the next steps they feel led to take and helping them make sure they have the support to do that. So you're not a consultant coming in and saying, here's the next 10 things you want to do, here's your book, go do it and you'll be fine. Give me my $1,000 and I'm out, you know? That's not how it works with a coach, all right? So that's different. What about mentoring and coaching? What's the difference between mentoring and coaching?
Mentoring implies that you have personal experience with whatever is being brought to you.
Yeah, exactly. And let me tell you how I did it, how I grew my church. When I met with my 3 churches, this is how I kept them in the Methodist church. That's mentoring. You're kind of telling them. And that coaching is not telling. You may give direct communication. This is what I hear you saying, you know, but this is not, I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. So let me tell you, the handout book is there for you. You can follow along if you want. That's there for reference after we're done. There's going to be a couple pages up here, but that's, you know, at this point, we're just going to absolutely talk through this and go through this. So here's a couple ways to think about it. Also, when we think about recovery therapy, we think about recovery. It's what happened in the past that's affecting what you do now, as opposed to coaching, which is discovering. What is it that I need to do now? Where is it that I want to head? How do I head that way? The difference between what we call archaeology, digging in the past, versus architecture, which is building the future that we want to head toward. Many people that coaching is therapeutic for them, and hopefully Nathan feels a little calmer about now heading into Wednesday's meeting. He's got some next steps to do. He maybe even a little bit of homework of things that he wants to look at before he heads over there. So it may be helping calm him down, but it is not therapy. Consulting is, you know, you're the recognized expert. They're paying you because you're the expert and you're going to come tell them what to do. Who's doing the majority of work? Usually it's the consultant. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to do research on what you do and then put together a report for you then to do whatever you want with. Many people do that and then never follow the report of the consultant, unfortunately. Mentoring, it's the mentor's insights, experience versus the coaching insight and experience, and it's the coach that's pulling it out of the coachee. All right? So, why coaching works? Most people don't know they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, right? So, they know what they know. And they come to this understanding that they know they don't know something, so they have to go research it. And that, in some respects, is the academic side of my life. That's what I do with seminarian students. They come in, they don't know they know something, and I teach them how to do good academic research. The coaching side of this is that they don't know that they know. That they're struggling with something, and they actually have the answer within them. They're just not aware of it or don't have enough courage to take that next step on their own for whatever reason. And a coach comes in and helps them to give them the courage to take that next step, to begin to move toward that which they want to head toward. For me, it is very much the kingdom of God is within us. God is trying to tell us where we need to go, and most of the times we block that for whatever reason. And a coach comes in and helps you to listen to that, and what is it you're feeling called to, or what do you think is the next step? Where is it that you want to be by the time this meeting is done? What do you need to do to get there? That's the basic premise of coaching. So, in your own life, what would be different if you worked with a coach? How do you see a coach could be helpful? Accountability, absolutely. And that's a big thing. It's the last thing we're going to end with today is asking, Nathan, who can support you in this? What are the things you need to do? How can you make sure, what's going to keep you from losing your temper? The accountability part, because usually it's not just a one session. When I see Nathan the next time we meet, how did it go? Were you able to keep your temper? What made you lose it? What are the things that you didn't, how could you have handled this better? It's that simple accountability is a high reason. Most people say when they hire a coach, it's not that they couldn't have gotten wherever they got, it's that they get there a lot faster. And that's why coaching is booming in the executive world right now in businesses, right? Google has coaches for anybody who wants a coach. They have their whole own coaching staff. Helps them get their people where they need to go faster, which keeps them ahead in the market, which means that they're just better as a business going where they need to go and faster than anyone else. Yeah. Any other reason you can see why a coach would be beneficial?
Better focus.
I'm sorry?
Better focus.
Better focus, yes. Yeah, particularly in this world of ADHD and all over the place, just that focus. And I have a couple clients through the ADHD, and that focus, it really helps them sort of with the accountability and then making choices knowing what it is they need to do next and next and next and able to stay on track with that. Yeah.
It's emotional versus factual.
It is emotional versus factual. You're going to hear in the coaching world that you coach the who. So part of me was just finding out who Nathan is and what he needed to be able to feel like he could go into that meeting. And that is, there are executive CEOs that pay huge money for coaches that they can call at any time. And usually the call is, I got a meeting, calm me down. Help me go into that meeting so I feel like I'm on my A game. And that's it. There are coaches that get paid some really high money just to do that. They talk to the person, 5 minutes, they're off the phone, the guy goes into the meeting or girl goes into the meeting, and is able, that's that emotional support. This is what you can do. Do you know what you're doing? Bam, go for it. Yeah. We're going to work on listening and then powerful questions. And after lunch, after you do your coaching, then we're going to come back and talk about artful language and putting together that action and accountability plan. That's our goal for today. So the first thing I'm going to do with you is to see how well you listen. So we're going to do a listening experiment. At the end of it, I'm going to ask you which was easiest for you to listen to and why, and which was most challenging and why. All right? So there's 3 things I'm going to read, and I'm going to ask for silence as I read them, and then see which one was easiest for you to listen to, which one was the most challenging. Now, I will ask some people to share. Obviously, not everyone's going to be able to, but just in your own mind, sort of answer those questions, all right? So here we go. Here's the first one. There was no time for play. There was no time for fun. This was no time for games. There was work to be done. All the deep, deep, deep snow, all that snow had to go. When our mother went down to the town for the day, she said, somebody has to clean all this away. Somebody has to, you see. Then she picked out 2 somebodies, Sally and me. Second, help wanted. 37-year-old manufacturing, sales and service operations company seeking salesperson to sell high-quality liquid and dry fertilizer applicators. Travel mandatory. Company provides a vehicle and expenses on the road. Salary plus commission. Full benefit package with 401k. Experience preferred but not necessary. Third, if I could have just one wish, I would wish to wake up every day to the sound of your breath on my neck, to the warmth of your lips on my cheek, the touch of your fingers on my skin, and the feel of your heart beating with mine, knowing that I could never find that feeling with anyone other than you. Which was easiest for you to listen to? which was the most challenging? So I will ask for some folks who'd like to share which was easiest.
First one was easiest for me, and then the last one was challenging for me.
Okay, so why do you think the first one was easiest?
Because that's what my parents used to do to me.
Make you work or read that to you?
Make me work.
Okay, so no, it's a good question because there is a couple people over here that were mouthing it with me. They knew every word to that. Do you know what I read? Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss, right? Yep, you were one of the second one. Excuse me. So you know that, right? You could probably say the whole book, right? So some people had instant childhood memories, right? But for you, it's interesting. That was easiest because it's the work that you identified with. And what you're going to find is the ones that are easiest is where you identify the quickest, for whatever reason. So the last one was challenging. Any reason that you think why it was challenging?
Yeah, I don't like reading that kind of stuff. Well, because I try not to, it sends my mind to places I don't want it to go, so I try to guard my mind from that kind of thing.
All right.
I just don't, I'm not into that.
Okay. That would be an interesting question. You married?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting question for your wife. Yeah, okay. Anyone else, which was easiest, which was?
I thought number 2 was easier for me to listen to because there were more facts involved there. And my biggest challenge was number 1, I think, because I was trying to read between the lines.
You're looking for the facts, and it's just this rhyming kind of, what's going on here. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I've used the example for a number of times, and the time that there was really a hardship in one area where I was doing the coach training, I had about 5 people come up and ask me where that job was. Because they were looking for work, or people in their congregation were looking for work, and so that just the environment and that's the most I've ever had of anyone saying number 2 was the easiest. All right, so what did anybody else find number 2 easy, just out of curiosity? All right, good. You're the factual people in the room. Yeah. Or you were in that industry, one or the other. Yeah.
From a coaching perspective, 1 is the only one that presented a problem.
Okay. In what way?
Mom expects us to shovel the snow.
And they don't want to. Yeah, that's true. What steps can you take to improve your listening? So I'm going to give you like 3 minutes to have a discussion with someone. How can you improve your listening? And then we're going to share. How do you listen to those things that are hard for you to listen to? So who's willing to share? All right, so this is a quick, you have all these experts in the room, right? Lots of pastors who've been listening most of your life. What are the things that you can do to help improve your listening? What did your table come up with or your partner come up with?
Well, I said get rid of distractions. Make sure the phone's not anywhere nearby or there's nothing by that you're going to like bounce off at.
All right, get rid of distractions. Yeah, phone is turned off. There's not something out the window that's going to get you. All right, get rid of all distractions. What else? Eye contact. All right, if possible, eye contact. A lot of coaching is done over the phone. So just be aware of that. I coach people around the world, and I don't actually see them. It's on the phone, all right, or through the internet kind of a thing. So, but eye contact when you're person to person, absolutely. Yeah. Other things.
I think part of it is just to remind myself that this is a moment of hospitality and grace, so that I'm aware of that before I get started, and that helps me stay attentive longer.
Yeah. One of the greatest gifts you can give someone is simply to listen to them. A lot of people, for the 3 churches, that's one of the greatest gifts is just listen to them and hear their story and how they got to where they got at. Most people are not listened to, right? I had one pastor who took this course who I revolutionized his whole pastoral approach because he thought he could show someone he was listening really well to them if he ended the sentence for them.
Was he married?
He was. And he was serious. Changed his whole way of pastoring. He now listens first. Yeah.
And to teach people, if this is so serious, how about meet at this time in this place so I can give you my full attention, whereas Sunday morning, right before we're ready to preach, don't, unload your problems.
Yes, exactly. And part of that, and I'm glad you said teach them because that's on us. That's on us to boundary saying this is the appropriate time for us to have this conversation. I'm sorry that we can't have it right now, but let's, set up a time or see me after church or let's pull our calendars out or, however you do it. That's incredibly important. Yeah.
Well, I think on that same note, where you meet too. If it's somebody that's really personal, you really need to listen. Maybe Starbucks isn't the best place.
And that depends on the client.
Yeah.
Right?
Because there's all the privacy and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
We weren't talking about on the phone, but it got me to thinking. I wonder if, for me, if I would be thinking about how I'm going to rephrase what they're telling me to give them some feedback that I am listening and I'm hearing correctly. That makes me focus more because how am I going to rephrase this to them? Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a coaching technique, rephrasing. And the wonderful thing about your clients, parishioners is, so what I hear you saying is blah, blah, blah. And they go, no, that's not what I said. Yeah, they correct you. Okay, what did I say it again? Because I love that because it's not like you did it wrong. It's like you misheard something. So what inflection, what did I miss? And people correct you, and that's a wonderful thing. Anything else?
I was just thinking if we're doing it, it sounds strange, not talking.
Yes.
When it's silent, you just don't have to rush in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to expound upon that in a second. Yeah, so then let's define it. What is listening? How would you define listening? I heard, all right, if you're shaking your head, go ahead.
Well, paying attention, because if we don't, how can we see
All right.
we don't know what they think?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's paying attention. Listening is work. And it's a choice that I'm going to give that person my attention. Any other way you define?
When I intentionally listen, I'm putting myself into that person's shoes to see things from their perspective.
Yes. Yeah, understanding what their perspective is. Yeah.
Well, and I think, because I struggle with it, it's to hear what they're saying and not preparing to speak.
Yes.
You get caught up, this is what I'm going to say, and then you stop listening.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the things we have to let go of, and especially for new coaches, because you're thinking, what am I going to ask now? Yeah, and you got to let go of that. You just got to listen, and when they're done, the question will come. And for me, that's also trusting the Holy Spirit within me, using all my skills but yeah, it's quieting that voice inside our head that is talking while whoever I'm trying to, it's whatever it's telling me or saying me or whatever.
It's respectful.
It is respectful. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Understanding what somebody is saying, not what somebody said.
All right, so fill that out for us.
To understand what someone is trying to communicate rather than just hearing the words that are coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, you are correct. So let's hold on to that, and we're going to come back to that because that's absolutely true. All right, so the thing about listening is you have to be curious and interested. You've made the choice. You're going to give this person your attention, right? It is quieting your mind or whatever you call that little voice inside of yourself as the person's talking like, oh, I forgot to pick up the wash. Oh, I meant to do, then you're not listening to that person at all. You've gone wherever you go inside your head. Or, creating a safe spot for another person. Let's just talk about that for a second. What does that mean?
Be non-judgmental.
A little louder?
To be non-judgmental about what you're hearing.
So fill that out for me. What do you mean by non-judgmental? I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Okay. You don't react emotionally to what they're saying.
Okay.
Don't ask leading questions.
All right, don't ask leading questions. All right.
Say you're important to me.
You're important to me. Whatever's happened to you is important to me. And sometimes as a pastor, that can be very hard because they're going to say something that theologically you may not agree with. But if you've created a safe spot, you're giving them permission to share whatever is happening. Whether the husband has just done this to me, right? Or whether I've chosen to leave my marriage for this other person, or I think drugs is the answer for my life, or whatever is very hard for you to hear, for you to have a safe spot for them is you're willing to listen to them and not instantly say, whoa, you can't do that. That's going judgmental. And that's not easy.
Making them feel comfortable.
Making them feel comfortable. Yeah. Yeah.
Before you begin coaching, do you talk with them about confidentiality and also about those instances where you would need to report?
Yes. So you heard me jokingly say to Nathan today, this is going to be confidential between me and you and 60 plus people in this room and whoever sees this videotape. And when you become certified as a coach, that confidentiality thing is something you put right on the table right away. And you agree with what that confidentiality is. And at least I know in the state of Pennsylvania, if you are abusing a child under, Pennsylvania is such weird because it's technically 16, but if it's under 18 and to 17-year-old, you better be careful and report it also. So that's for those of you who know the law well enough to get caught in that. I got caught with a 17-year-old. I had to find help for him, and he wasn't the 16, and he wasn't 18 yet, and no one would do anything. That's a long story that I just got into for you. But yes, it's saying that if you are abusing, I have to report it. Yeah. There are certain things I do have to report. If you're going to harm yourself, you're going to harm someone else, I'm going to report it. So you need to know that right off the bat. Yeah. So to my knowledge, they're the only two things by state laws. Now, whether your denomination has other things, I do coach a group. I coach a couple groups of pastors that I have to report to the hierarchy of the denomination what we talked about. So that's on the table right away. It's a coaching session for them, for their churches, but what we talked about, not who said what or anything, but the topic, the conference just wants to know. Yeah.
What about elder abuse? Do you have to report that?
I have. That was in a pastoral setting. I don't know the state law well enough. Does anybody know? Elder abuse, is that, I do know minor has to be reported.
I think it's a crime.
If it's a crime, absolutely, yeah, yeah. But like verbal abuse or, I don't know the law well, no one's ever asked me that, and I don't really know. So that might be a good thing for us all to find out, right? Because we should know. As a pastor, I've dealt with that, and yes, I did report it. In a coaching situation, I've not had to deal with that, and I'm not sure, is my answer. Good question.
And with that, you can sort of define as you begin with that, we will maintain confidentiality unless you're harming yourself or someone else or threatening to.
Right.
And so even if the state law doesn't require
you can say, we're going to do something about it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the boundaries for that, for your coaching with that person. Yeah. You can, yeah. Yeah, I just, in terms of a state law thing, I'm not really sure when it comes to the elder what the law states. Yeah. Yeah. All right, exploring possibilities versus giving answers. So many coaches are recovering fixers. Because we want so much to fix it for them. And we have found that pastors, that tends to be we try to fix it. And the person learns best when they discover it on their own, what the possibilities are and what they can do. That's true in academia also, interestingly enough. Reflecting back, you want to make sure the person hears you, but you don't want to be thinking about it. You want to make sure you're listening to the person until they're finished and really getting the other person, walking inside their shoes. So, I don't know your name, but what you were hinting at already. So 7% of communication is our actual words. 3% is unknown, based on science, right? 90% is nonverbal, your tone, your pace, your volume, and not your actual words. So the question becomes, are you willing to start listening beyond the words? So we're going to practice it. So we're going to listen for what's said and what's not said. What do I mean by that? What's intentionally left out? Yeah, yeah. So in Jesus' context, when they said Jesus is Lord, what was said, it meant who wasn't Lord? Caesar. Right? It's a very political statement by what they didn't say and what they did say. So often people will say some things, and it's what they don't say that they're hoping you catch that. Tone, pace, volume, inflection. Talk to me about all of that. So when we talk about tone, what are we talking about? So what is it when I talk like this? What am I doing? Or what is it when I talk like this? What am I doing? Oh, what is it when I talk like this? And what am I doing? What's the tone difference? All right, the attitude. Think of it that way, the attitude of how those words are coming out, you know? I love the commercial, and if I had thought about it, I would have put it on State Farm commercial, where it's the exact same words. Oh, that couch looks perfect. It looks perfect here, right? And it's somebody who just bought it, and then it's the same commercial. It's two robbers, the exact same words. Oh, that couch looks perfect. I know, that's why I put it here. They're taking for us, you know, it's like the exact same words, but said in different ways. Pace, you know, right? What's pace? How fast or slow? All right, so as you listen to someone, you'll know, how excited, by how fast or slow people emphasize in different ways. Volume, that's pretty easy when someone gets excited or messed up today. I can't believe I messed up. Right? Just the volume alone. Inflection in the voices, all right? How the words go up and down. Right? I coached someone who's a Mennonite, and we had to sort of work on this because I don't know if you know the Mennonite culture well, but every time they talk about something, their sentences always end up. So my husband left me today. And it always ended up. And it always sounded happy because that's what they're taught to do. And so we kind of had to talk about her inflection and in the situation that she was in. It's just an interesting cultural thing, at least in the Mennonite community down in Pennsylvania. When you listen for someone's greatness, what are we talking about? All right, what they believe their self-worth is, as well as Nathan took a huge risk, and I congratulate. He was a brave guy, right? His greatness of being willing to come in front of everyone and share this. Strengths, what they're good at, all right? Values, what's important to them. Passion, what drives them, what they're excited about. Energy, All right, let's do it kind of thing. Yeah, when you're coaching someone, you will hear when they get excited about something and they get really passionate about something and they, oh, I know what I can do. And like you hear that passion, that energy in their voice. All right. It can be. And that's where, the listening beyond the words is important, because part of it is you have to figure that out. Yeah. All right, so limiting beliefs, what are they? What kind of things? I do. There are things that hold you back, but when we talk about limiting beliefs, yeah, it's the things within yourself that hold you back, that you know, a lot of people know what to do, they just don't think they can, or they're afraid to for some reason, or I'm too old to do that, or, you know, I just don't have enough education, or, you know, I don't know that I have the time, or it's whatever they limit themselves in what they think they can do. False assumptions?
Sometimes that's cultural.
Sometimes that is cultural. Yeah. Yeah. Can you give us an example, just that you brought that up? Do you know?
We were just talking about the Mennonite.
Mm-hmm.
It's her culture.
It's a culture, that's right. Yeah.
So the limiting beliefs and the false assumptions could go along with, if you're listening, you can think of something completely different.
Yeah.
Like she might be nervous and she's not really nervous, that's just her.
Right. Okay.
See, I'm like from Texas, so I'm tall and skinny.
You're called?
I'm tall and skinny.
You're tall and skinny.
Because I'm from Texas.
Because you're from Texas. Okay.
Some of these things you're not going to find out on the first time you talk to the person.
No, you're not going to find out, but it's important for you to begin to listen for them. And that's what we're going to practice doing. So I'm stretching your listening today because, well, let's just finish frustrations. What are those? Things you get upset about, things you feel are holding you back, you know, the frustrations. All right, so I want you to pick one of these lines, because you're going to coach me, and I'm going to tell you a situation that I am presently dealing with, and I want you now to just pick, and in a second I'm going to ask people to raise their hands. So I want you to either pick listening for what is said or not said, and that's all I want you to listen for, just the one thing. Or pick tone, pace, volume, and inflection. When I'm done telling my situation, I'm going to ask, tell me about my tone, tell me, right? Or pick, you're going to listen for my greatness, strengths, or values. Or pick passion and energy. Or pick limiting beliefs, false assumptions, and frustrations. It's one of the reasons I took the time to go over all of them so we kind of knew what we were going to do. So has everybody chosen a line? All right, let me make sure none got missed. How many are listening for what is said and what is not said? Just raise your hand. All right. How many are listening for tone, pace, volume, inflection? All right. How many are listening for greatness, strengths? Good. Passion and energy? All right. Limiting beliefs, false assumptions? All right. So, here's my situation. My husband and I are thinking about getting a dog. So we don't have an animal. My husband and I are very blessed. We met each other later in life. We've been married for 10 years in October. We're going back to Hawaii to celebrate. And one of the things we're thinking as we're looking toward retirement and we're looking toward getting older is getting a dog and for companionship. And also maybe a little bit just to help us as we get older. Because I need to get a little more exercise in, and I'm figuring a dog would force me to do that. And my husband just retired, and I'm still working, and I know I have about another 5 years that I'm going to be working full time. And I just like the fact that I know that there's a dog, you know, a being with my husband. He's great, fine, but just, you know, just for him that when I'm gone during the day, or I tend to teach a lot of evening courses, that there's a dog there. So we're thinking about getting a rescue dog. So we've gone to the area rescue place, and we're looking at all the things. And part of the problem is my husband wants a big dog, and I want like just a medium size dog. And we're trying to like negotiate this out, right? And so my husband knows I'm a coach, and a long time ago when we were discussing something, he went, "Stop coaching me," right? So you can't coach your relatives. You're gonna try when you first learn these techniques, but you just have to kind of talk this out. And so we're trying to come to a meeting of the minds as to what kind of dog we're going to get. So that's the situation that I'm at right now. That's that's why I would bring a coach in right now to kind of just talk me through how do we get beyond this, wanting this big dog that I'm afraid is going to pull me over, and as we get older, it's going to be harder to take care of, as opposed to like a more medium-sized dog, and maybe one we can even train as a therapy dog, and someone, you know, companionship, but calmer, and that we can control a little easier. So that's my situation. That's what I'm coming to you to coach about. For those of you who listened, what was said and not said?
The benefits of a big dog and the drawbacks of a small dog.
All right, the benefits of a big dog and the drawbacks of a small dog. You're right, it's all one-sided. See, in that alone, he just coached me, because I realized I never looked at the benefits of a big dog and the drawbacks of a small dog. So, bam, you're a good coach. You automatically gave me new awareness that, yep, you're right, I am so one-sided on this whole thing, aren't I? I never even looked. Very good. Anything else said and not said?
Didn't reference previous dogs that you each have had.
Didn't talk about previous dogs and what our experiences are. Maybe there's something else, the reason I want a big dog and he doesn't want a smaller dog, yeah?
I think you said your goal, Roddy. You said your goal in that. My goal is what kind of dog are we going to get?
Mm-hmm.
Which is awesome. And I just jumped to greatness. But that's awesome because you all have made it this far.
Yeah. We're getting a dog.
Yeah, that's happening.
And that took a long negotiation, yes.
You should be elaborate on what you
Okay.
Your motives and his motives, almost as if your motives were to keep an eye on your husband,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to tell him which is the answer to get before he comes to that himself.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's why I need a coach.
And at one point in time, you talked about what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say anything at all about the responsibility that your husband was going to have in this dog. So I believe that you're struggling with, do I have the time to take care of a dog? I'm still working.
Right.
And he's retired, but it's going to be my responsibility.
Yeah. Very good.
I wonder if you've ever had a dog before. You made all kinds of assumptions.
I do. Actually, I have had a dog before is my answer, but yeah.
He didn't really share much about how you and your husband have tried to work this out or come to something. He didn't talk about that.
Very good. And so hold on to these, because when we go to powerful questions, you're going to coach me. So I'm going to turn the tables and say, okay, you know the scenario, now we're going to start doing powerful questions. And so hold on to some of that. All right, tone, pace, volume, inflection.
We were talking about the dog, we were talking really, really fast and really excited, and then we started talking about getting older, and it kind of slowed down.
Very good. Yeah. I'm a little more excited about the dog than getting older. Yeah.
I could tell that your husband saying, "Stop coaching me," was a sore spot.
Yes.
Just by your tone.
Yes. Others? Tone, inflection?
There was a change in your tone about you still working and he being retired.
Yeah.
That was a big issue.
It is. We're still getting used to that. Very much so. Yeah. For those of you who've made that transition, it is a transition in your relationship when one is retired and one keeps working. Yeah.
I just say, when you mentioned about the big dog, you were a little more reserved, kind of held back a little bit.
Scares me a little. Yeah.
You were definitely loudest when you were imitating your husband, but you seemed quietest when you were talking about his condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Very good.
I think what you brought out is very interesting. Sometimes it's just a small little
Absolutely.
conflict that can cause so much trouble.
Absolutely. You'd be amazed what people just want someone to coach them through because they just can't. It's that, look, just getting a dog in a relationship, just that, you don't need a therapist for it, but a good coach, yeah. Greatness, strengths, values. The fact that we're willing to get a dog, yeah.
I saw, well, I would clarify one thing. It seems as though you really much value this having a dog. Is your husband's passion the same? Does he value it? And so I think that's great. I think it's great that you guys have made this decision together and that you're working towards something together. That's healthy too.
Yeah.
That's really healthy.
It is healthy. Thank you. Yeah.
You valued unity. You said we frequently.
Yes.
And even though you were
Good.
one-sided in your argument, you still said we.
Good. Yes. I like that. I was one-sided in my argument, which he nicely pulled that out for me. Yeah. You nailed me. Yeah, but it's still a we. It is. We are going to come to this. Whatever it is, it's going to be together. Absolutely. Yeah.
Just as you were talking, I was admiring the warmth that you had, and even talking about your 10-year relationship now with your husband, and you're wanting to, it seems to me, to translate that into a pet. Which is like personifying that love.
And probably is.
That's wonderful.
He's counseling me now.
Yeah. Affirming.
He's affirming. Yes, sir. Thank you. You are.
The value of a rescue dog. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love the bumper sticker that says, I own a rescue dog. Who is rescued?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Absolutely.
So, that's a great value.
Yeah. Passion and energy. Who listened for that?
The difference between even the passion that you described, the big dog, which was, I mean, the dog that you showed was a big dog.
It's huge in my mind. It is huge.
Versus even just your body language when it was like this, which is overwhelming, versus this.
Very nice.
So there was definitely passion and energy around that. Even
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're definitely passionate about your husband.
Yes.
Not so much energy around exercise.
Yeah. I do this, and I try to pick something that, and every time, no matter what I put out there to be coached on, I get so nailed. It's like you guys, you know me now. It's like, oh.
There was a connection and passion that you articulated about the connection you have with your husband and then transferring that connection to a dog. You just articulated such passion that you value the relationship both with your husband and then with the possibility, the hopefulness that would also be a dog.
Yeah.
To me, passion is when you get that dog and how you're going to care for it, and love that dog and admire everything that he does. Energy is you're going to go for a walk with him.
That's right. I'm going to want to go for a walk. And it's going to be a she, just so you know. We've agreed to that.
The most remarkable thing about this is that your husband is not listening.
Good for him. We'll find out on the car on the way home. You may be assuming things there.
When you first started out, you were reserved, and it almost looked like you were twisting your ring.
I am.
So, in other words, there's more at stake here than just getting a dog. And you know that.
Yeah. Good pickup. That's watching. Yeah, but that's watching, and that's one of the wonderful things about you coach someone in person is that's watching beyond those mannerisms, beyond the words. Yeah, absolutely. All right, limiting beliefs, false assumptions, and frustrations.
You talked about the big dog versus the medium-sized dog without talking about breeds. You're making assumptions that based on size, that the behavior is going to be a certain way.
That's true.
It does depend on what size the breed, what kind of breed the dog is, whether it's going to pull you along or...
You're right. You're absolutely right. That's good. Yeah.
You also assume that dogs will want exercise. I had a dog who was really constipated.
Oh, great. Now I got to worry about that. Yeah. All right. So I got to check these breed things out. Yeah. Okay.
A limiting belief might be that you're only taking into account size, but once you get to that place where you're going to be looking at these rescue dogs, you might find one regardless of size.
Right, that the connection is there. You're right, good point, yeah.
You're right. It is that way with a dog, isn't it?
Yeah?
With husbands too.
There seems to be some assumption that not only the dog would want to exercise, but that you would exercise with the dog. And so I think that's another step of assumption. Certainly a possibility, or maybe a probability. And also when you talk about older, the two of you getting older, there seem to be some assumptions of what that might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. That is correct.
There's also this kind of small assumption that a dog is a problem solver, not a problem creator.
Sort of like having a kid. The kid's going to solve it all, yeah.
The dog solves the exercise problem, the dog solves the companionship problem. It's always kind of
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, very nice. Oh my gosh, you're nailing me.
I kept asking if you were assuming that this thought process that you're going through, that your husband really was involved in it.
He has been, I will say that. Obviously, he's not involved in this discussion right now, but yeah.
You're making an assumption with getting the dog now that you're going to have this connection and this bond and this relationship with your dog. However, your husband's the one who's going to be home most of the time now when you get this dog.
That is true.
So that dog may really
It's going to be his dog.
and not want anything to do with you.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks a lot. Yep. Now, I don't think I should get a dog. Man. All right, 1, 2, 3.
and it seemed like you made kind of light of it in the conversation, but you seem to have a small frustration that your husband's minimizing your coaching communication style.
Yes, he is. Yep.
You said you hadn't had a dog for a while.
That's
and
true.
I wondered if you're making the assumption that when you take the dog for a walk, you leave things behind. Because nowadays you pick them up and carry them.
Yes, yeah, I get what you mean, yeah. You're right. No, we have talked about that where we live. We have had that discussion.
If I heard you right, backing up to what is said and not said, is nothing was said about the cost of purchasing the dog nor medications for the dog.
Right. The kind of cost variations, yeah. You're right.
It sounded like one of the limiting beliefs that you might have is kind of a lack of confidence in being able to train the dog, because even a big dog won't pull if you train it right. And a medium dog can pull harder if it's not well trained. And kind of go back to what, I can't read your name tag, sorry. Jane said, it could gravitate more towards your husband, which would also deepen kind of the lack of potential self-confidence. But there are ways to train around that too. And so it seems like there might be a belief that you might not be capable of training the dog to be the best dog for your family.
Man, you guys are good. All right. We're not going to take a break due to the time. So, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start practicing questions. I just gave you the situation. And one of the things about learning is that sometimes when you do it wrong first, all right, you realize how bad it is. So then we learn what the proper things are. Let me just check. All right, yeah. So this is the situation. You've all wanted to ask me questions, but I'm going to limit you first to asking me really bad questions. And then we're going to say why it's a bad question. All right, so you're not going to tell me why it's a bad question. I'm going to ask everybody else who's listening in here why it's a bad question. So first and foremost, ask me a really, like you're so bad a coach, like you would even think about asking this question. So what's a bad question first? Is it really wise to get a dog at my age? Oh. All right. Why is that a bad question? All right, why? Let's just assume that everybody knows you're laughing, so I think you get that, but why is it a bad question? You just insulted me. Yes, yes. All right, all right. All right, another bad question.
Do you know that it's going to really affect your husband and your relationship?
Do I know it's really going to affect my husband and my relationship? Okay, that's borderline, depending upon how you ask that question, right? Why can that be a bad question? That it's going to in some way, yeah, do it in a negative, yeah, yeah. Either way, it's going to affect our relations. It already has. We're having these huge discussions, right? So, yeah. All right, another bad question. What are you going to name the dog? That is a bad question. Why? It's irrelevant. That's exactly right. And so often we go off on these irrelevant questions that that doesn't really help me with my situation. So that's excellent. That is an excellent bad question. You're good at that.
I really hate dogs, so I really thought about getting a cat.
All right, so why is that a bad question? Yeah, first of all, he's talking about himself, right? And the coach it's not about me, it's about who I'm coaching. So the fact that I like cats or dogs should not even enter into the conversation. Yeah, another bad question?
What are you going to do if the dog gets real sick?
What am I going to do if the dog gets real sick? Okay, so that also is kind of borderline depending upon how you ask it. So why is that borderline? Or what can be bad or what can be good about it?
Well, there are concerns with getting a pet.
Yeah.
Things you need to be thinking about.
Exactly. So depending upon how you ask that as the coach, did I think through all the things, like he wanted to make sure I knew I had to clean up after the dog and pay for whatever meds and sick. So yeah, but if it's done in a more negative way, it can be a bad question. Yeah, yeah.
Why are you looking for companionship from a dog when you have your husband?
Why? Oh, all right. Well, okay, so now I'm going to nail you. That is a bad question, but I'm going to nail you because what did I say about companionship?
It was for him.
It's for him. Oh. Okay, yes, yes, yes.
If I were in your shoes, here's how I would change my husband's mind.
Yeah, excellent bad question. Actually, bad statement. Why? Why is that bad? All right, you're taking sides, you're being judgmental, and you're giving me an answer, you're giving me a solution. Just change here's how I'm going to tell you how to change your husband's mind. Yeah, yeah. All right, let's switch it. So we're talking about powerful questions, and you're coaching me. And this is the part I love because you've already coached me, whether you realize it or not. Ask me a powerful question to help me deal with this.
Why do you even want to get a dog?
All right. Why do I want to get a dog? Why is that a powerful question? It is a powerful question. Why?
It's right at the root of what you're asking, what you're trying to figure out. It's at the root.
It's at the root. That's exactly right. Why? Myself, why are we even doing this to begin with? What is the purpose of the dog in our lives? Yeah. Powerful question to know why you do something.
I wanted to ask you about your husband wanting it for companionship. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. And that would be a good thing. And once again, I'll correct you. I want it for him for companionship.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't say why. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Right. So nailing me as to what he wants out of it. Yeah, or what I think he wants. Right.
Why a rescue dog versus a brand new pure breed?
Right. Why a rescue dog? Why are we choosing the type of dog that we're choosing? Why have we made that decision? Right. Once again, helping me identify why we're doing what we're doing. Other powerful questions?
Well, the questions you asked right from the beginning in the counseling session or the coaching session, what do you hope to accomplish through this coaching?
Yeah.
What do you want to see the outcome be?
Yeah. And I can't emphasize enough when you're coaching with someone, or even someone walks into your office and it's like, well, what do you want to talk about? When we're finished, what is it you want? What is it you want to happen? That automatically makes you think about, where is it that we want to head with this? That question, just that question, is a powerful question for someone to think about. Now, I'm bringing this issue, but what is it that I want out of this? It's a very, very powerful question. Yeah.
I would ask, why is it important for you to have a big dog when it's for your husband?
Okay, why is it important for me to, I wanted actually the smaller dog, he wants the big dog.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
No, if I said that wrong, I apologize. Yeah, he wants the big dog, I want,
But
yeah.
anyway, why would you want your choice when it's really for him?
Right, yeah, exactly. If I'm talking about his companionship, why am I the one saying, okay, then I want this size dog?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
good point, good question.
I loved your coaching questions about worst case scenario and
Yeah.
best case scenario. So what is the worst case if you got a big dog?
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like and how would you respond to that?
Yeah, very powerful question. What would be the worst case scenario? Good thing for anybody to think through no matter what the situation. What would be the best case? Both of those are powerful questions.
How does your husband feel about having to take care of a dog all day long while he's home alone?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. It's what we're talking about. Who's taking care of the dog when? Yeah, whose responsibility? Yeah, exactly.
I know you're still working now, but how do you visualize your life with your husband when you are both retired? And how does that dog fit into
Yeah, to that lifestyle. Yeah, 5 years down the road. Yeah, absolutely.
How is it that you think your husband needs companionship from the dog when you're not?
When I'm not there, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Powerful question.
Do you have family or friends who will take care of the dog when you
When we're not there, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question too. Once the care, making sure I understand the choices that I'm making.
I've heard you talk a lot about companionship. I've heard a lot of questions about companionship. So I would just want to clarify, is exercise a fringe benefit of this, or is that a motivator behind this as well?
Mm-hmm. Which is a good question. Yeah. It is actually, for me, a fringe benefit. It's not the motivator. Yeah.
On the same line, what does companionship mean to you and to your husband?
Yeah. What does that look like and what does that mean? Yeah. Yeah.
I would think as a coach, you would have wanted to have established up front, do you want help in coming to some kind of decision between you and your husband? Or are you trying to decide if you want a dog in the first place?
Right.
Because a lot of these questions are assuming you don't know whether you really want a dog.
Right. So this is good because after lunch, we're going to break you up and you're going to coach each other. And that's exactly what you need to do. I mean, I will go over this after lunch, but you're going to ask, what is it you want to be coached on? And when we're done, what is it you want to walk away with? And those two are the beginning structures of a good coaching situation to begin with. So you're absolutely right. If you were going to begin coaching me, that's exactly what you would want to ask first. What is it that I really want to be coached on? You know, what is the outcome? What am I working on the coaching, on just getting a dog, or the making the decision with my husband, or what? Where am I at in all of this that I put out there? Yeah, yeah, very good.
What are some things that you value most about having a dog? And conversely, what about your husband? What are some things that he values most?
All right, so yeah, the value of this, yeah.
When you speak of companionship, are you thinking about a challenging relationship or an easy relationship? And how does that relate to a rescue dog?
Yeah, that's a good question. How the behavior of the dog, is it going to be challenging, easy? Which is it that we want? Why did we go with the rescue idea? Yeah, all right, I'm going to be bringing this to a close just because of time, so here, and then we're going to keep moving.
This is more of a question. Would it be appropriate to ask that other question you said about where is God in all this?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you didn't mention God at all in the conversation, is it appropriate to ask that question?
Yeah, now that is going to depend on who you're coaching and if they allow you to go there. Some folks won't. But for my husband and I, that would be a very important question. Where is God in all of this? Yeah.
I don't know whether this is a good one or a bad one.
That's right. Go ahead. 1, 2.
But nobody has approached, have you ever thought of what the cost of having a dog will be?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good or a bad question?
If a person is truly wanting to make a decision and you're helping them look at the whole, everything, that is a good question. And just so you know, if you go through rescue places, they give you the cost. They will tell you what it's going to cost to. They don't want you taking a dog you can't afford, and understanding what. So the cost is right on the website.
If the dog is for companionship, do you begin to coach the issue of are there alternatives to 5-year employment, and do you consider retirement?
Yeah, so it's a good question. In terms of the dog and then retirement, and What's the time frame of this? Yeah. I'm not answering it, but it's a good question. I'm going to keep going, all right? So, yep, I lose my clicker thing all the time. So if you were going to describe what makes a question powerful, what is it?
It's a question that helps the person coaching think it through.
Yes. No matter what, it's a question that makes your client think through what they are saying and why.
I was just going to say, it gets to the heart of the issue. It doesn't go down a rabbit hole.
Right. There are times that you do go down rabbit holes, but you do stick to the heart of the issue. And that's in more advanced coaching. Sometimes you want to go after the anger thing. Even though he wanted to just be ready for the meeting, that anger thing came up, and sometimes you want to go after, we call it skinny branches, but go after the rabbit hole. But yeah, you are correct. What makes a question powerful? Brief? Yeah, why?
I don't know, I'm Southern, I can't ask a brief question.
I train coaches, as has Kay, and sometimes when the coach asks a question, they ask a question, they just keep going with the question, so the person they're asking the question of has no idea what they're really asking, because they just keep going and going until they finally ask the question, and then the person says, what did you want me to ask? Yeah, it's like, because it's got to be to the point so the person gets the point of it.
Asking it in such a way that's not really too directional, let them choose their own direction in answering it rather than kind of guiding them down towards the answer.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this after you have the experience of coaching this non-judgmental language, yeah, because there's a way that you ask a question that you're leading the person rather than just asking a question out of curiosity. You are absolutely correct.
Maybe questions that help the person think of other alternatives.
That's exactly right. That's what we call bringing new awareness. A powerful question brings new awareness. Absolutely. So God asks a couple interesting questions. So in Genesis, he's walking in the garden, which he walked every afternoon with Adam and Eve, and all of a sudden they're not there, and he asks the question, where are you? Is that a powerful question? Why?
He asked it because did the man really want to stay in the same position he is now, or did he really want to get by?
That's a nice way of putting it. So do you think God really didn't know where they were?
He knows everything.
Yeah, if you assume that God knew where they were, why is God asking, where are you? The question is so that Adam and Eve can identify for themselves, where are we? Now that we've done this, where are we? Because if you, Adam, which is kind of, it's a fun thing to teach, he goes, well, we were naked. So like he answers them. So the trust is there with God, but he begins to explain where he is. It's an interesting question. So the blind man, Jesus asked him, do you want to be well? What's so powerful about that? Yeah, you guys have been pastors well enough to know some people really don't want to get well. They don't want to leave this. They're kind of comfortable in this situation. Yeah, powerful, powerful question. There's a lot of them. There's actually a book of Jesus as coach and the kind of questions he asks. My goal is to be like him. He talks to the Samaritan woman, and within 5 questions, he gets to her theological problem. 5 questions, that's all he takes. If you don't, he doesn't really answer. He asks her questions. Amazing, amazing man. So when we talk about what makes a question powerful, it is directly connected to deep listening, right? So like I nailed you over here about the companionship because I wasn't talking about the companionship we use for my husband. So it's that really listening and getting what the person is saying, right? So the questions should come out of what the person is telling you. You listen. You don't have to worry about, is this a perfect question? Whatever question bubbles up within you, there's a reason that's bubbling up, and you need to just ask it. And don't worry about trying to ask a question that's going to give them a solution. Just ask whatever that question is that is bubbling up within you. For me, that's part of trusting the Spirit. Brief, which we already talked about, free of any hidden agenda or judgment. I don't think we need to go over that anymore, or does anyone not understand when we say free of any agenda or judgment? I don't want to go over that too quickly because that's important. When I'm with advanced coaches and I'm working with them and they're coaching someone, when they ask a question, every once in a while I have to stop and I have to ask them, when you asked that question, did you know what you think the answer should have been? Because if you're asking a question that you think you know what the answer should be, what have you done?
You led down a direction that they may not have wanted to go.
Yeah, that has a hidden agenda in that question. You're trying to get them to go a certain spot. And in coaching, it's just what's out of curiosity, what's the question that comes next? Not one that you're trying to ask them a question so they'll figure out this is what they have to do. Then you're trying to fix it for them. Usually open-ended. So when I talk about a closed-ended question, what's a closed-ended question?
Yes or no?
Yes or no. So do you like the color blue?
Yes or no?
All right, you're going to say yes or no. I don't, but if I ask, why do you like the color blue?
Because it reminds me of the sky.
Right? They start, it's, an open-ended question gets someone to think, and they have to give a full sentence, at least a full sentence response about something. All right? It shifts perspective. What does that mean?
Shifts from being stuck into the possibilities of what could be.
Yes. Say that one more time louder, because that's perfect.
Shifts from being stuck, which is where most people are if they seek out this kind of guidance and presence, and it shifts them, their thinking to possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think of the word perspective, where are you standing to see what you're seeing? So if you can have someone move to someplace else, they can maybe see the problem from an entirely different perspective. It's what we do in preaching.
Yeah.
Who are you going to tell the story? From what perspective? Is it or one of the disciples? Is it an observer? Is it someone reading it?
Right, so shifting the perspective, and that shifting the perspective helps you see in a whole different way, gives you all different kinds of things to think about and ways to shift what you're doing, get you moving forward. Yeah, one of the most powerful sermons I ever heard was from the perspective of the mother of the prodigal son. Exactly. Had to have been one, right? I know it's an argument from silence as to what she would have thought, but just very powerful sermon. For the benefit of the person we're coaching. Why that?
Because that's what we're there for.
That's exactly right. That's who we're there for. We just agreed we're going to listen to this person, we're going to respect them, and our question should be about what they are dealing with, not about, so you're thrilled that the Eagles won? Whatever. It should be about the person, not about the coach. All right? So, history changed when a single question changed. When we stopped asking, how do we get to the water, and started asking, how do we bring the water to us? What's the difference between these two questions? Nathan?
The first one, you're just going to be constantly trying to put out fires, and you got to find a way every day to get that water. But if you find a way to bring that water to you, like your aqueducts and pipes, you no longer have to go out and get that water. You have to,
Changes the whole, right? It's what we call a big shift. And in coaching, that's what, that shift. What is it that needs to shift in the person's perspective? Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the answer, I would spend the first 55 minutes figuring out the proper questions to ask. For if I knew the proper questions, I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. That's the importance of questions. All right, so I have learned that at this point I could keep talking about coaching and blah, 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 but until you do it and get a taste for it, and then you know what kind of questions you have, this is the best way to learn. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of what do I do next? Don't be afraid to ask the person you're coaching if you're not sure that's right. Kay and I will be walking around, so if, unless she ends up with a partner. So I'm hoping you at least read this part of the book. In it, it talks about listening, evoking, clarifying, brainstorming, and support. So we actually went over listening, and evoking is what you're doing with the powerful questions. You're getting the person to answer things about what they're heading toward, and then you're brainstorming as to what the things are that they can do. So in the book, this is the structure that is there. The listening and invoking, asking them, what is it you'd like to be coached on? When we're done in 20 minutes, what is it you want to walk away with? You're going to listen to what the situation is. You're going to ask clarifying questions about what's going on or what needs to be done, or if there's any kind of brainstorming, what are the things you could do? Let's role play. And at the end, what's your next step? All right, what needs to happen? Who can help you with that? So that's the structure in the book, and I find this is a lot easier to follow. So you begin with, what do you want to be coached on? What do you want to take away? Then you explore that issue with powerful questions, and then ask, what are your next steps? What help do you need? There are your basic questions. Trust that the Holy Spirit is going to help you with whatever questions, with whatever situation that person is giving you to help them with. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions you have about the coaching later. But the first thing I just want to hear is, how did it go? What did you experience? Yep.
I didn't feel like I knew enough yet to know how to ask the right questions, and I wanted to talk.
You wanted to talk, yeah. Yeah, the code, you wanted to, yeah. So you didn't feel like you knew enough to ask the right questions. Okay, and just, for right now, it's just a matter of let the question bubble up. So we're not, but you at least went through it, and were you helpful to whoever you coached? Yes? Okay, all right. I just checking, all right. Other experiences? How did it go?
I liked it, so I wanted to listen more and more, and I got into the story with him. I almost came into agreement with him, and so how do you coach out of that deal? I'm like on his side. Right?
So you made a new friend today. Well, that's a good thing. The good thing is that he drew you into the story and you were curious, and that's a natural part of coaching, is you need to keep that curiosity going, but also keep enough distance to be able to ask questions around whatever the situation. Were you able to do that, or do you just went right down the path with him, whatever he said was good with you?
I pretty much went
right down the path. That's okay. That's a beginning. It's a beginning, but at least you were curious. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I mean, the odd part is that I knew that I was doing, but I was having so much fun, I didn't want to change.
Yeah. And if coaching is fun. There's some fun things about it, just walking with the person, finding out, exploring, discovering. Yeah, but you still have a job to do. So when you asked him what he wanted to walk away with, were you able to at least help get there?
We were right there when you stopped.
You were there. Okay, I called time on you, and it's my fault. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in the back of the booklet, there are some different techniques, and as you go on into coaching, obviously there's much more to this. This is just to get you a taste of it. As I said to Kay, you're now dangerous because you have a taste of it, but there's more to learn about the actual skill of coaching. And the SMART goals are one of the things to think about as you're working with your coachee or your client. Absolutely. All right, I'll switch to questions. Did anyone have questions that came out of your coaching? What particularly were you trying to measure? That's one of the... Success. Is it achievable? So that measuring should come out of the client themselves, the coachee, as to... So if peaceful was one of the things they wanted to measure, what does that feel like for them? When they are peaceful, so that they know they've arrived. So those are the things, you have to even, coach down on, is what we call it, to get exactly what that feels like for them. What is it that they want to achieve? What does that look like? Is there time, you know? So yeah, that you have to go deeper in on, but yeah. For you'll see halfway through, ask, are we on track? And for anybody who's a certified coach, you ask at least 2 times throughout, are we on track? Is this still where you want to head? Because you can get off and the person's like, well, no, this isn't what I wanted to, you know, and they'll tell you. That's a wonderful thing. They're honest about you. So I didn't emphasize that when I sent you off, because I just wanted you to practice listening and asking questions and seeing if you could come up with some sort of next step. That was our only goal for this part, right? But yeah, that checking in as you get into coaching more in depth, that becomes very important. Making sure you're going where the client wants you to go. In one respect, it's called direct communication. It is a little further down, but there is a time to coach and a time not to coach. And when there are those who coach their own staff, and you just have to be really careful of the boundaries on that. It's not that you can't do it, you just have to be careful on the boundaries of coaching the person versus this is a job and this needs to be done at such and such a time, and now, you know, you need help with that, or are you stuck? When you're stuck, then let's come back, and then you might want to use the coaching skills, but it's different than if you're giving an assignment as a sort of, I don't know if you're hierarchical or not, whatever, however you approach your staff, but yeah, you do have to be careful of the boundaries there. It is possible. There are folks I know who do that and do it very effectively. In the booklet, when you get to read through it, there are ways to coach your council or your consistory or your board, because there are definite ways to ask questions rather than to go through agendas and that kind of thing. So there are various ways to do that, yeah. Yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about the process of today. So today gives you a taste of coaching. And one of the things we don't do at all the first time is to teach you how to do what we call direct communication and just tell the person something. Because most people, when they start this, they just want to tell the person something. So it's, you know, you just want to fix them and you want to, so people really struggle at the beginning with just using questions, you know, and so you learn the power of questions if you hold yourself back. Now, there is a time in coaching to do what we call direct communication. And you phrase it in, you know, first you ask permission. I've observed something, is it all right if I share it with you? And if the person allows you to say, what I'm hearing is this. Or what I've noticed is every time you talk about your mother, you know, you shake your head, or you whatever you do. You know, it's like, you know, so, but you always ask permission, and then you tell, if they give you permission, then you share whatever it is. That's not something you're going to learn at all today, because that's not even, you know, at this point, it's just the listening, the powerful questions, you know, and we're going to head into brainstorming and action planning. So, but it is definitely part of coaching. But when you first are learning the skill of it, so many people just want to tell that we hold everybody back. You know, Kay will teach you the next part, you know, it's like how to do that. So because too many folks just want to fix somebody, and that's the danger. Yeah.
It seems to me like, we've learned, or we're kind of got our feet wet with this, and that our urge is we're gonna want to try to find somebody to coach, but it seems to me that there's a danger that we're gonna go back and that there's gonna be times that somebody needs a pastor and not a coach, and I think we're gonna have to be very careful with that. We're just we already said don't do it to your family.
You're all going to do it to your family, but yeah, yes, it's going to happen. You just do it. Yeah, and you do it, we call it switching hats. So, there are times that I'll say, okay, I need to put my coaching hat on. Can I have permission? Or I need to put my pastor hat on. Can I have permission to do that? Because there are folks who are from counseling who go into coaching, we have a lot of spiritual directors who are coaches there, but they're very honest about, okay, I'm going to switch my hat now. You get permission, and then use that different technique if you feel that technique is best for the person. And it's always what's best for your client. Yeah. Yeah. All right, we're going to keep going. We got 2 more things to learn, and then we're done for the day, all right? So, artful language. What role does language currently play in your ministry setting? If I said you need to use artful language at your church, what am I talking about?
I think it's a way of sometimes even breaking bad news to people without being mean about it.
Yeah. So telling the truth in love might be a way of saying that, breaking bad news but not being mean about it, right? The choice of words you use, and being aware of how you say things, right? That's artful language. Because we have the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never harm me, and nothing can be further from the truth, right? Because words do harm, and we can choose words purposely to harm folks, or we can swallow those words and not, choose not to use them to harm folks.
Where are we at?
Thank you. Our language can propel someone closer to their hopes and dreams, or it can reinforce doubts and limiting beliefs, dashing hopes and dreams. So our choice is, oh, you don't want to do that. Yeah. I had, where I'm at, my church was Pennsylvania Dutch, and I had a woman who I didn't know well yet, and I asked her to call and ask folks if they'd be willing to come to a service and a thing we were doing for the very first time. And she called them up and she said, I know you really don't want to do this, but the pastor wanted me to call and ask you. And once I heard what she was doing, I was like, no wonder nobody, when you start the conversation, I know you really don't want to do this, but she'd already made the choice for them, made the assumption. So that, the way you set things up, right, can either help or tear down. So artful language is an awareness of our own language preferences, because we all have them. Right? An awareness of the language preferences of the other person, particularly we are coaching. So if you have someone who learns best through hearing, what language might they use? Auditory language. So give me language that's auditory. If somebody's talking to you in auditory language, that's already a clue that they learn best by hearing. What would they say? All right, they could repeat things. Or this sounds like to me, or what I'm hearing is, or the noise that was affecting me was, or it was so quiet it bothered me, or that kind of. What about someone who learns best by visual? It looks like, the picture for me was, So you just listen to the language people use, and some things are real easy. I coach someone and it's like, well, man, it was like it was the 4th down and I had 2 yards to go and I had to call the play, and I was like, I use football analogies with this guy. That's I go learn some of them and that's what I use. Or it was the 9th inning and it was 2 outs, and so I use baseball, and you just listen to the choices that people make that helps them hear things. It's really funny how we put things in those perspectives in our lives. Masterful use of language propels the other forward. So there's just a little exercise we're going to do just to give you just a taste of the importance of language. And I guess most of you know that, so I need 2 volunteers that are just going to have a discussion. So I have 2 volunteers, all right? Come on up. Nathan, you already volunteered for the day, so I'm going to give you a rest. You're preparing. All right, come on up, Scott. All right, so I guess you're going to have to stand here just so that the camera can get you. Microphone. I forgot about that. Okay. So you're going to have to hand the mic back and forth. So you need a topic that you want to discuss. So what topic would you like to discuss? Give him a suggestion. Is that good or bad?
This is on tape?
It's on tape.
Church leadership.
The Olympics.
The Olympics.
The Olympics, okay? Okay. So you're going to have a discussion, and Beth is going to say a statement about the Olympics, and then after her statement, you're going to say yes, but, and then you can say whatever you want. And after his statement, you have to say yes, but, and then reply back to whatever, and I'll let you go for like 5 or 6 statements.
Okay, not minutes.
Not minutes, no, just 5 or 6, just, yeah. All right, okay. So just, you say a statement, then your answer is yes, but, and then after he's finished, you say yes, but, and you're, all right, so nice, but just remember to keep the microphone going back and forth.
All right, I think the 2-woman bobsled is the coolest Olympic event in all of Winter Olympics.
Yes, but. Yes, but they just lay there.
Yes, but it takes such athleticism and skill to push that sled to the sliding place.
Yes, but I think ice skating takes more skill because you're spinning and you get dizzy.
Yes, but can't you just do that kind of stuff dancing? I mean, there are other such more athletic competitions in the Olympics than ice skating.
Yes, but isn't skiing even more athletic than just sitting on a sled as it goes down the hill? It's sort of gravity doing its job.
Same topic, only you say a statement, and after saying, you have to say, no, give me a different one. Yes, and. He says a statement, now you say yes, and.
We're still talking about the Olympics.
The Olympics is your job. You don't have to stay with the Stage free.
Cross-country skiing looks like something I could compete in the Olympics in 4 years.
Yes, I think so, and I think you'd have to be in really good shape with training for it.
Yes, and that would probably take a pretty big commitment of time on my part, which I probably don't have.
Yes, and well, you probably have to move too. It's where you can practice it.
It's scary when we talk about moving. Yes. And there's a possibility that I could train here in Pennsylvania.
Yes, and I mean, there's the winter, there's a lot of snow. There are places you could train probably in the summer too indoors.
Yes, and I could put wheels on my skis and train outside too.
All right, I never knew two women bobsledding could go there. That's What's the point of this exercise? Why am I doing this for you with artful language?
Because one builds up and one tears down.
Yeah, just a simple change of but or an. Everything he said was contrary. When it was but, when it was and, he just that simple one-word phrase. If you've never thought about the language you use, it's important.
But even the and could go negative.
It can go negative.
Taking it a certain direction, then I sensed, well, now we're going a negative direction, but then there was just the one time she spun it back around, and all of a sudden we're getting positive again.
But you followed her either way. The and you just, I don't know if you realize it, but you kept following her. Yeah. So the artful language is what we think about in terms of choice of language. When we talk about word choices, the but versus the and, how the alignment of language. So when I talk about the alignment of language, I sort of already gave you a hint. When somebody gives me football analogies, then I try to put football analogies, or they give baseball, I try to use baseball analogies, all right, so the alignment of language, the distinctions and acknowledgement. So when we talk about, I shouldn't blow through that. Distinctions in terms of making sure that it's understood, you're very distinct and clear about what you say, and acknowledgement we're going to get to in a second. I am going to describe that. So when I talk about clean language, when you are the coach, it should be ego-less. What does that mean? Right. If you're doing I statements as a coach, or you're telling them about your experience or why you did whatever, that is, yeah, you automatically put yourself, and that the coach stays out of it. It's not about you. It's all about the client. It's ego-less. It's assumption-free. We talked about this. What's assumption-free mean?
It's like if you saw somebody dressed a certain way, you'd make an assumption about what kind of person they are.
Yeah, so if you're coaching with someone and you assume you know what they should do, you're in trouble as a coach. Because you're making the assumption you know what's best for that person, rather than letting them find out for themselves what it is. It would have been interesting with this one example when the one coach asked the other, how important is that from you, 0 to 10? Or she could have phrased that like, this is really important to you, isn't it? And she automatically made an assumption for the coach, for the coachee, for the client, rather than simply asking, so from 0 to 10, how important is that? And the revelation in the client going, 0, like, whoa, I don't care about this at all. It's like letting the client make the decisions. You as the coach don't lead them, you allow them to find out on their own what's best. Judgment-free, this can be a hard one. What do we mean by judgment-free? And if you're coaching someone and someone goes into a area that you know you are not comfortable and you know you cannot then coach them, you need to tell them and suggest that they coach with someone else. And if anything, sometimes with pastors and theologies, this is where you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble if you're coaching someone, because you assume what they're saying is wrong, and then you try to direct them into what you think is correct, rather than allowing the person to explore whatever that situation is. And for those kinds of situations, you have to decide if you're the best coach for that person, if you can't be judgment-free. And it's better to just admit it and say, and I'm talking with a coach's hat on, I'm not talking with a pastor's hat on, right? First and then second.
I guess that's the thing that muddies the water for me, because I can't put myself in a place in my own mind where I'm going to be strictly a coach. I might use coaching skills at some time, but I'm not being...
I don't know the training in terms, so say someone, I'm coaching this, I'm thinking about killing myself, my next question is, how would you do it? And that, that's a basic, that you're exploring to see how serious they are. I have a gun. Do you have bullets for the gun? I have bullets for the gun. Where are the bullets? They're in the gun, ready, loaded, ready to go. Right, then it's time for us to end this coaching session, and I need to tell you now that I need to, but if they're like, I have no idea, okay, then why were you interested if, what is it makes you in your life want to think about killing yourself? But that's also just good, when you're exploring with someone, if they're serious about killing themselves, the next question is, how would you do it? And it should be absolutely, you should not be judging them. You need to find out if they are serious. And if you're saying, oh, you can't do that, they're not going to talk, they're going to walk away and not, you need to be, it's actually, coaching is good in that, just being totally, how would you do it? What, when are you thinking about doing this? Who is, exploring it and then finding out, okay, now we need to get some help in here. Yeah. All right, agenda free. What's that mean? Exactly. Should be their agenda, not yours. If you're asking them questions because you want them to discover something that you want to make sure they know about, you're imposing your agenda on them. I love when I'm teaching this because Kay's back there going, oh man, no, you don't do agendas. It's like reacting. All right. So we're going to experiment once again by not doing and then by doing. So respond in ways that are not clean, and then we're going to clean them up. So I've come to you, I'm your client, and I've said to you, I'm ready to take my church to the next level. What's an unclean thing for you to say to me?
You're not the type of person to do it.
You're not the type of person to do it. That's unclean. What's another unclean thing? Good luck. Good luck? You got it? Would you like to be head council chair? All right, I get it. All right, I don't know the Methodist system well enough to know. That's somebody who gets the responsibility to do that.
Have you scheduled your Matthew 28 consultation yet?
All right. Good luck. Good luck. All right, so clean that up. You're my coach. I've come to you, whatever my situation in my church, and I've just said to you, I am ready to take my church to the next level. What's your next question? How are you going to do it? What's that look like for you? Yeah, you're getting it. Tell me more. You're getting the language. I always feel like I'm the referee in my family. Unclean language first. Unclean language means your judgment and you have an agenda, right? So unclean language. Shows how you raised your kids.
Your family does need a referee.
Your family does need a referee. Hey. Why are you always bugging into their stuff? What sport are you playing? That actually might be a powerful question, depending. Yeah.
There's not enough therapists for the nuts in your family.
There's not enough therapists for the nuts in your family.
Who died and left you the whistle?
Who died and left you the whistle? All right. Clean now. I'm coming to you. I want you to coach me. Man, I always feel like I'm the referee in my family.
What makes you say that?
What makes you say that? How does that make me feel? What's going on? Who's in your family?
What's the role of a referee?
What's the role of a referee? Yeah. All right. It's been a long day. Yes, it has. Unclean. Tell me about it. That is all in how you say it. That can be clean or unclean. No, seriously, it's all in how you say it. The way you just said it was unclean. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Just the inflection. Just you wait. We're not done yet, man. We're going to 6. Hey, hey. You should see my schedule. Yeah, you think you've had a long day. Yeah, that putting your ego about tell them about my day. All right, clean it up. It's been a long day. Coach me. Tell me about it. Long day? What's going on? What happened? All right, you got it. You're getting it. Coaches intentionally align and sometimes misalign. Why would we sometimes misalign when we're coaching someone?
We might not know exactly where the person's coming from.
All right, you might not know exactly where the person, you might be doing it accidentally, misaligning because you just aren't catching it. That's correct. Why would you do it on purpose? All right, if you were with you, she went negative on you, you realize that you maybe, how do I keep this positive? Is there a reason I want to keep it positive? That could be that you're setting an agenda for some reason to keep it positive, but yeah, it could be that you want to do that for some reason in the coaching.
They may be too vague and you're trying to get them to be a little more specific.
To try and get more out of them, misalign to catch their attention, yeah.
Help them see a new perspective.
Help them see a new perspective is one of the ways to do that, absolutely. Yeah. You don't get the metaphors?
Like you were talking about football.
Football, yeah.
Maybe I have to use a different metaphor. I have no idea.
I know, do what you do. Yeah, let's switch from the football, yeah. A couple times with my clients, I got to do a little research just to understand what did he really say, yeah. So distinctions. What's the difference between definition by challenge versus definition by vision? What's the difference?
For me, vision is where you want to go. And challenge is focusing on the problem.
Yeah. Definition by challenge is you're doing by this, there's another problem, you're just dealing with a problem, where definition by vision is you're planning because you know where you want to go, rather than letting all the problems dictate. What about living by default versus living by design? What's the difference?
Going with the flow versus having a plan.
Yeah. Just going along and, next thing you know, your life's over. And did you do what you wanted to do? Did you, do you have a bucket list? Do you have things you want to accomplish? What's your design? Adding more versus adding value. I'm sorry?
Adding value is better than more because more may be just the same thing.
Right. You want to look busy, so you just keep adding stuff to your schedule, and you're really not accomplishing anything. You're just looking busy. You're just adding more rather than value.
Yeah. I was thinking Mary Martha,
Choosing the greater part. Yeah. How's best to use your time? What adds the value? What is more effective rather than just adding one more thing on my, yeah. Either or, both is versus both and that we sort of did with the but and the and, all right? That's, all right? Planning versus preparing. What's the difference?
Yeah, that is a good one.
I think a plan, you've actually got a static thing that you're going to live into versus preparing is fire maneuver. You're getting yourself ready for whatever comes at you.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a little bit to me like living by the Spirit rather, if you're preparing, you don't know where the Spirit's going, but you're prepared to powerfully effective doing versus being powerfully effective. And this is late in the afternoon to be giving you one of those. But what's the difference?
Would the first one be just being really good at doing something, but the second one is you're doing something that's more worthwhile, that actually makes more of a difference, like in others' lives?
That's right. Making the choices to do what is most effective rather than just doing something or being effective at doing something. So we talked about acknowledging. It was out there. It's easier to list our weaknesses than our strengths. I don't know if you've ever done that with yourself. Sat down and just do a list. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? You might be surprised what you come up with. Unfortunately, based on the United States psychologists, by 8 years of age, most of our thoughts about ourselves are negative. By 8. God and Jesus acknowledge people all the time in the Bible. Can you give me an example when Jesus acknowledged someone? Zacchaeus? Yeah, that's a great one. Anybody else? The man with leprosy. All right. Woman at the well. Yeah, acknowledging is a very important part in coaching, so much so that when you get certified, it's one of the things they listen for is how well do you acknowledge your client, so that they get acknowledged. The things that they are doing well, they hear that they're doing them well. Acknowledging a person is one way to empower them, to give them the strength to move forward. So are you familiar with Ben Zanderveer's Everyone Gets an A? No?
Is that like everybody gets a trophy?
A little bit. We have time for this. All right, let's see if this works.
Benjamin Zander has conducted the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra for 20 years. He is also artistic director of the music program at Walnut Hill, a high school for the performing arts in Boston. As a writer, he co-authored The Art of Possibility, Transforming Professional and Personal Life. He talked to head teachers at a conference organised by the National College of School Leadership.
I'm a teacher like you. I teach at the conservatory in Boston. I have a class on Friday afternoon. People come from all over the world and they're excited to be there and they're eager to learn, you know. But what's really going on, they're saying, am I better than her? Am I better than him? I know I'm better than her. I don't think I'll ever be as good as him. I hope I can be as good as her. They're constantly comparing and they're measuring. And when they can't come out to play, let's say the violin, it looks as though there's one person playing the violin, right? There are two people. There's the person who's playing the violin, and then there's another person standing behind the person who's playing the violin, whispering in his ear, you haven't practiced enough. Do you know how many people play this piece better than you do? That difficult passage, you missed it the last time. It's coming right up. You're going to miss it again. That's the voice in the head. And if anybody's saying, what does he mean, a voice in the head? What's he talking about, a voice in the head? That's the voice I mean. Took a moment for you to hear it, right? But that voice keeps talking and talking and talking, and it never stops. You know, sometimes it talks so loudly that it drowns out the music. So my job is to get hold of that voice. And this is how it works. I do it each year. I come into my class at the beginning of the year, and there are about 40 students in my class, and I say, after a little bit of housekeeping, I say, your grade for the year is an A. You're an A. That's your grade. And there's one condition. The condition is that they have to write me a letter in the first 2 weeks of the class, of the year. The letter must be dated the following May, when the class ends. So the date at the top is May 2000 of the next year. And then the letter must begin with these words, Dear Mr. Zander, I got my A because... Then they have to write a letter describing who they will have become by the following May to justify this extraordinary grade. And I tell them to fall passionately in love with the person they're describing in the letter. And they do. They write about who they would be, who they could be, who they see themselves as if only that damn voice would stop telling them they can't do it. When I come into class, the person I teach is the person that they have described in their letter. You see, I only take A students. Now, there are a few people looking very concerned and saying, how does he do that? Well, the answer is very simple. You can give an A to anybody. You can give an A to a waitress in a restaurant, to a taxi driver. You can give an A to the other drivers when you're driving in traffic. You can give an A to your mother-in-law. You can give an A to your boss. You can give an A to anybody. What happens when you give an A is that the relationship is transformed. This is hard for teachers. I know this is very, very hard. I addressed a group of teachers earlier this year, and one of them came up to me afterwards and said, I like this giving an A. It's sweet, he said. But he said, but it doesn't make, you don't know the students. You don't know them. You don't know their work. So I imagine as the year progresses and you find out that some of them are quite mediocre, I imagine you modify the grade, right? I said, no. And then I tell them about this young girl I met. She's about 15. I said, what's your name? She said, Joy. I said, I beg your pardon? She said, Joy. Now, should her parents modify her name? No, because we don't give children a name as an expectation to live up to. We give children a name as a possibility to live into. The person who understood this perfectly was Michelangelo, and I'm sure you've heard this beautiful thing, but it bears repeating. Somebody asked Michelangelo about sculpting, and he said, oh, sculpting is easy, because you have a piece of marble. Inside the piece of marble is a beautiful statue. All you need is a hammer and a chisel just to get rid of all the stone that's in the way. And then That's actually a theory of education. It's, of course, not the one we use. The one we use, we're up here, the students are down here, and they try to get up and they do their homework and they work hard and they study and they work as hard as they can, and this is as far as they get. This is the gap between their achievement and our standards. And of course they're very manipulative because they know what we want to hear, so they can get up a little higher. Michelangelo's model is totally different. It's eye to eye. We each have a hammer and a chisel, and we're working to get rid of all that stone that's in the way of that beautiful statue. It's a totally different world. It came home to me very powerfully one day. This was the first year I'd ever done this with the A, and I was really excited about it. I came into class, and I said to all the class were there, and I said, what does it feel like to get an A in the first class of the year? I mean, you haven't done anything, you get an A. What does that feel like? To my amazement, one of the Asian students put up his hand like that. Forgive me for my attempt at his accent. He said, in Taiwan, he said, I was number 68 out of 70 students. I come to Boston, Mr. Zander says I'm an A. It's very confusing, he said. I am number 68 out of 70. Mr. Zander says I'm an A, but I am number 68. I worked 3 weeks, very confused. Then one day I discover much happier A than number 68. I decide I'm an A. I call that cosmic laughter. That's not head teacher's laughter, that's cosmic laughter. Because what you're laughing at is the realization, of course, that the A is invented, the 68 is invented. We might as well invent something that lights up our life and the life of the people around us. I don't know if you know this, but in America, in our music schools, we have about half our students from Asia. From China and Japan and Korea and Taiwan and Singapore and all these places. And they play fantastically well. They're great. They win the competitions, but they don't speak up in class. And I found out why. I actually asked them. I said, what is this about? And they explained to me. They said, Mr. Zander, you have to understand, in Asia, it's very important to be right. The teacher is always right. And the students try to be right. And as one of these young ladies said, the best way to be right is not to say anything, then you won't be wrong. Now, I believe the exact opposite, which is you cannot learn anything unless you make a mistake. So I tell my students, when you make a mistake, celebrate. And the way to celebrate is like this. How fascinating. It's actually quite difficult. Try it out on the golf course next time you're out. You know why it's difficult is because when we make a mistake, we tend to pull down. The body pulls down. Notice the next time you make a mistake, the body pulls down. Now, instead, when it pulls down, you go, how fascinating. It's like this. It's difficult to do, you know. We had a conference of leaders of the music world, you know, heads of orchestras and schools and opera houses and so on. And we had a 3-day conference. And there was a lot of what I call downward spiral speaking. Now, I don't know what the head teacher's downward spirals are, but I'll tell you some of the musical downward spirals. The little old ladies who like classical music, they're all dying, so there's not going to be an audience. The children don't learn instruments anymore. All they do is watch MTV, so they're not going to grow up liking classical music. And the National Endowment of the Arts is not supporting, and the foundations aren't supporting the arts the way they used to, so we're going to run out of funds. By the end of the second day, people were walking around the corridor in the hotel like this. Because, you know, everywhere there's downward spiral. You can't get around. I was looking at the Times this morning, and I thought of bringing it in and showing you how many columns in the Times are downward spirals. It's amazing. Every column is a downward spiral. Of course, the stock market, that's a downward spiral. Downward spiral. Also upward spiral. Upward spiral and downward spiral are actually the same thing. Because wherever you have a winner and a loser, you automatically have a downward spiral. So, of course, sports is full of downward spiral, but it doesn't matter in sports because we all go out for a beer afterwards. Yeah. But our educational system is based on a downward spiral because there's nowhere to go from an A but down. So we shouldn't be surprised if our kids look anxious. Sometimes it seems as though there's nothing but downward spiral, which of course isn't true, which is why I asked for another flip chart. Now over here we have possibility, the world of possibility, the realm of possibility, and this is where the vision is. And vision is very important. Vision is really important because, you know, people get confused about vision. They say, oh, so our vision is to be number one. No, that's a goal. Vision, to be a vision, has to be for everybody. Everybody. At this conference, somebody stood up in front of the whole group and said, 3% of the population likes classical music. If we could move it to 4%, our problem would be over. I say everybody loves classical music, they just haven't found out about it yet. How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you be if you thought 3% of the population likes classical music? Only we could. How would you talk? How would you walk? How would you be if you thought everybody loves classical music? They just haven't found out about it. These two worlds are totally different worlds. I had an amazing discovery. This is a really big deal for me. I was 45. I'd been conducting for over 20 years, and suddenly one day I had this kind of road to Damascus event. Eureka! I realized the conductor of an orchestra doesn't make a sound. My picture appears on the front of the CD. But the conductor doesn't make a sound. He depends for his power on his ability to make other people powerful. And when that happened, it changed everything. People in my orchestra said, "What happened to you, Ben? What happened?" That was what happened. I realized my job was to awaken possibility in other people. Of course, I wanted to know whether I was doing that. And you know how you find out? You look at their eyes. If their eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. You could light up a village with this guy's eyes. If the eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. If the eyes are not shining, you get to ask a question. Who am I being that my player's eyes are not shining? We can do that with our children too. Who am I being that my children's eyes are not shining? Now over here, we have goals. Have you noticed how goals tend to be rather grim? We have a goal. It's a rather grim pursuit. We have to make the goal. Now over here, you can have a goal as part of the vision. By all means, you have a goal, and if you make the goal, great, and if you don't, how fascinating! Because you know, we all know why we have goals. Why do we have goals? To make our eyes shine, that's all. That's the reason we have a goal. So if the goal posts are too close together, you can't score. If they're too far apart, it's too easy. So if it's not working, the eyes aren't shining, move the goalposts. You know, that's the thing. Now, over here you have the words you should, you ought, you need, and you must. Try those out on your children and see if their eyes shine. Over here we have things like, how about, what if, what are we looking for? What's next? Over here, you see totally different language, totally different. Now, over here, you have blame and fault and threat. And over here, requests and apologies, totally different. This is where we put people down and also put people up. Over here, everybody gets an A. It's a totally different world. Now, the leader, the new leader, is the one who, first of all, can distinguish the downward spiral and then has the power to take people from there over here to radiating possibility, and anybody can do it. Anybody, an 8-year-old child can do it. Anybody can do it. There's a key. There's a key to the kingdom of possibility. I'm going to give you the key to the kingdom of possibility right now. Okay, so this is the story. It always comes in a story. Okay, the story is this. 2 prime ministers were sitting in a room, and they had a conversation about affairs of state, you know, the way prime ministers do. And suddenly the door bursts open, and a man comes in a state of apoplectic upset. He's just like this and making so much noise and racket and carries on. Of course, they stop their conversation. And the resident prime minister says, "Peter, please remember rule number 6. Immediately, Peter's restored to complete calm. He bows, he apologizes, and he walks out of the room. They go back to their conversation. 20 minutes later, the door bursts open again. A woman comes in. She's hysterical, and her hair is flying, and she's mascara's running. Everything is a mess. And shouting again and again. The prime minister says, "Maria, please remember rule number 6. Immediately, she bows, she apologizes, she walks out of the room. And then 20 minutes later, it happens for the third time. The third time, the visiting prime minister says, "My dear colleague," he says, "this is astonishing." He said, "I don't believe it. 3 people have come into this room out of control. And you just say rule number 6. Would you be willing to share what this rule number 6 is?" He said, "Oh, it's rule number 6, very simple. Don't take yourself so goddamn seriously." He says, "Oh, that's a wonderful rule. What, may I ask, are the other rules?" There aren't any. Cosmic laughter. Pretty tentative, I must say. Now, it comes down to 3 things. 3 things. 1, it's all invented. You've got to get that. It's all invented. 2, standing in possibility. And 3, rule number 6. That's it. Simple.
Thoughts? You've never heard his teachings before? Things to think about. One of the most important questions in coaching is, whatever the goal, what would you like it to be? Whenever the issue is, when it's all said and done, what do you really want? And if anybody is working one step toward what they really want, it instantly changes who they are. Just giving them the possibility that something can be done toward that. All right, so we're heading into the last section. The last section when you're coaching with someone is what we call action and accountability. And it's actually one of the things that helps your client actually do whatever they say they're going to do, knowing that you listened to them, you've created the plan with them, and you're going to hold them accountable. They have to actually hold themselves accountable. Many people work with a coach because they are either stuck or need to help making significant change. People want to change. They just don't know how to do it sometimes. They just need a little help in terms of what do we do next. Why does knowing what needs to be done rarely result in getting things done then? Why would people say, I want to change, I want to lose 10 pounds, well then you just have to exercise and diet, and why don't they do it then?
It takes work.
It takes work.
It's hard.
It's hard? Lack of accountability. Yeah. Yeah, often that's one of the things with Weight Watchers, one of the things where they have you have to call into someone, or you have to go a meeting, you have to talk. 83% of all strategic plans are not executed successfully because most people don't hold people accountable. For me in the church, it's like when there are some boards I've sat in on, I've been called in to help with, and they'll say, okay, we need this to be done, who's going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then when we come to the next meeting, it's like, well, was this done? Well, no. And they just keep going on with the meeting. And nobody holds the person accountable for whether the thing was done or not. Or, it's like, when holding someone accountable, at least from the coaching perspective, pastoral perspective, is maybe a different discussion, but that's our job. If someone says they're going to do something and they come back and they haven't done it, then the question comes, what got in the way? And maybe there's a legitimate thing that got in the way, and then, well, let's talk about that. Let's deal with it. But what happened here? Action and accountability are absolutely needed. So there's 3 parts to it. The first part is what we call brainstorming, helping the person figure out what needs to be done, designing the action, what exactly are they going to do, and then follow through. How are you going to make sure that you do it? What would stop you from doing it? Who can help you with this? So one of the things you have to be careful of with a coach is don't jump in too fast to design an action plan for someone. Why? Exactly, it's your plan and not theirs. What's the chance that they're going to follow through on your plan? Slim to none. That's exactly right. If it's something that it's come out of them, out of the coaching, what they want to do, where they want to go, and you've helped them design it, the chance of them doing it is much, much, much higher. Brainstorming helps the person see the same thing differently, enables them to discover for themselves different perspectives and options, helps distinguish between fact and perception, and helps them gain clarity and define success. That's what brainstorming can do. So when you're working with someone and you're talking about brainstorming, part of it is there isn't just one answer. Often there are many. And the more you get them out and the more you look at them, the more that person realizes they're not stuck in this little box where they could do this, we could make a fish, we could make Olympic rings, we could make it. Same situation, and look, even though many of you are like, I really don't want to do this, but look what you came up with. When we talk about brainstorming, we talk about seeing the same thing differently, that you're not stuck. There are other ways to do this. It's being willing to open someone to a full range of possibilities. It's resisting the urge to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? Definition of insanity. Which for those of you who work in the church, a lot of churches just want to do the same thing over and over and over again. What do you need to do to help them to see things differently? Moving up the balcony for a different view, anything that gets you to look at it differently. So, anybody Seinfeld? All right, this is an oldie but a goodie.
Speaking of having it all, where were you?
I went to the beach.
Oh, the beach.
It's not working, Jerry. It's just not working.
What is it that isn't working?
Why did it all turn out like this for me? I had so much promise. I was personable. I was bright. Oh, maybe not academically speaking, but I was perceptive. I always know when someone's uncomfortable at a party.
Got napkin over there?
It all became very clear to me sitting out there today that every decision I've ever made in my entire life has been wrong. My life is the complete opposite of everything I want it to be. Every instinct I have in every aspect of life, be it something to wear, something to eat, it's all been wrong. Everyone.
Tuna on toast, coleslaw, cup of coffee.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. I always have tuna on toast. Nothing's ever worked out for me with tuna on toast. I want the complete opposite of tuna on toast. Chicken salad on rye, untoasted, with a side of potato salad, and a cup of tea.
Well, there's no telling what can happen from this.
You know, chicken salad's not the opposite of tuna. Salmon's the opposite of tuna, because salmon swim against the current, and the tuna swim with it.
Good for the tuna.
George, you know, that woman just looked at you.
So what? What am I supposed to do?
Go talk to her.
Elaine, bald men with no jobs and no money who live with their parents don't approach strange women.
Well, here's your chance to try the opposite. Instead of tuna salad and being intimidated by women, chicken salad and going right up to them.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Yes. I will do the opposite. I used to sit here and do nothing and regret it for the rest of the day. So now I will do the opposite, and I will do something. Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice that you were looking in my direction.
Oh, yes, I was. You just ordered the same exact lunch as me.
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
I'm Victoria. Hi.
In the coaching world, we call that positive opposites, and it's actually a coaching technique. All right, so when you are finishing coaching with the person, there are a couple questions and things that you can ask them. What do you want to be able to say 30 days from now? What are the steps needed to close the gap from where you are now to where you want to be? Sorry, Randy, thank you. I keep forgetting to turn that off. Some people say, what are the baby steps you need to take? What are the first steps? What's the simplest step? What's one step to get you moving toward that goal? What's your time frame? And some people like to say, let's say it's 30 days from now and you're where you want to be. So 28 days from then, what would have happened? 26 days, what would have happened? 24 days, what would have happened? Some people just, they prefer to plan backwards rather than to plan forwards. So if I got here, then I must have had to do this first, and I mean, I had to do this to get to there, and then to get to here, I would have had to do this, and just another way of looking at something, getting them to look at it differently, to plan it. The things to ask them, how do you usually get derailed? What does self-sabotage look like? What stops you from doing that? Keep staying on that diet. Who can help you with this? Who can support you? What kind of accountability has worked best in the past for you? Because for everybody, it's different. What do you need to do to make sure you accomplish your goal? They're the accountability, follow-through questions. That's a taste of coaching.